Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Welcome in on a Wednesday morning. Should we have a moment of silence for the New York Knicks? It's not over yet. They're down 3-1. They could come back. I don't believe that. I don't think you believe that. I don't think anyone other than a really hardcore Knick fan believes they're going to do that. The Pacers just look like they're too good and they got the upper hand. 130-121, Game 4 to the Pacers. They lead the Eastern Finals 3-1. Tyrese Halliburton came out, was impressive from the start and stayed impressive all night. 32 points, impressive, but not his best stat. 12 boards, good. No offensive rebounds, though. Still a good number, 15 assists, wow. 15 assists. You got to like it. But the number that sticks out is no turnovers. That dude played 38 minutes. He had the ball a lot. He took 23 shots. 12 of them were threes. He was 5 of 6 at the line, 5 of 12 from the arc, 6 of 11 on the two-pointers, 15 assists, and 0 turnovers. You kidding me? Awesome. Awesome game by Tyrese Halliburton. I thought he gave him a real boost of energy right before the half, and they opened up a little 5-point halftime lead. I think they were down 1. A little spurt there, another little spurt in the third quarter, and then, the Knicks were there. They didn't get blown out, and they had their chances, and it was a 6-point game late. And, we've seen enough comebacks in this postseason. You couldn't rule it out, and at the same time, it never felt like it was going to happen. And it didn't. And now the Pacers are up 3-1, and they are sitting pretty. Meanwhile, over in the West, we got a game tonight, and my guess is we have the last game of the Western Conference Finals tonight. We'll see what the Timberwolves can do. The game's in Oklahoma City, 6:30 on ESPN. The Thunder have won 3 out of 4. I think they close this out. I think that was the Timberwolves' last stand, and they know it. And I expect the Thunder will finish it off in 5 tonight. They are the better team. They've shown they're the better team, and I think they will not want to mess around and get this thing over with. So there you go. Little hoops for you there. Now, coming up in this show, we have many more things to get to, including more hoops. Andy Bailey will join us on the Jazz and the NBA draft, which is now less than a month away. June 25th and 26th, with the first round and second round on separate days now. And today's the 28th. So, yes, less than a month to go. What will the Jazz do? What are the opportunities to trade up, and what is the cost of trading up? And if they're trading up, are they swapping the 2 and the 5, or are they getting a second top 5 pick? I'd be a little surprised if they get a second top 5 pick. But given who landed there, you can't totally rule it out. You can't. I don't think San Antonio want to trade out, but I wouldn't be surprised if they trade back. I just don't know that adding another guard to that mix. Now, maybe they like Harper. Maybe they want to trade Fox again and flip him. Hey, bringing him in from Sacramento seemed like a good idea, but at that moment they didn't know they were going to get the number 2 pick in the draft. So I don't know why you'd have Castle and Harper and Fox. That doesn't seem like a balanced roster to me, but hey, what do I know? They're the Spurs. They've done a lot of winning. So we'll see. We'll talk with him about that coming up. He's going to join us later this morning. He'll be on at 9 o'clock. 8:30, our spring football tour continues with Matt Murschel, the UCF Knights beat writer for the Orlando Sentinel. And UCF. All that talent in Florida, the guys who leave, because everybody goes in there and recruits. But, man, bounce back kids with the transfer portal. It seems like the transfer portal could really favor them. But we'll find out. We'll talk with Matt coming up. All right, we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, Steve Cleveland talking hoops. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Steve Cleveland joined us late in yesterday's show. Well, actually in the 7 o'clock hour, so I guess in the second hour, to talk a little BYU. He's got some experience with the Honor Code, admittedly in a different era. We talked to him about that, and then also his thoughts on these playoff series. He did not know the Pacers would win, but as you'll hear, he suspected they would. So here's Steve Cleveland, his conversation with PK and I on The Zone. Steve, there's been a big story out here over the last few days about BYU. The Honor Code's back in the headlines. Jake Retzlaff is back in the headlines, and I think this has been discussed at length. But I'm curious, as someone who coached at BYU and was in the middle of this, sometimes there's stuff the public knows and stuff the media knows, and sometimes there's stuff they don't. I wonder if you have any perspective to add to this, or if you think the public discussion largely seems pretty informed on what's being talked about on campus right now.
I've had obviously a variety of experiences through this, from being at BYU and being away from BYU, and it's interesting. Things have evolved at BYU, and I don't know how much detail I can get in because I certainly don't want to. But I know that I had a young man that had an honor code situation. I'm not going to throw names out there. I'm just not going to do that. But it was difficult because at that time, that you're talking about 1997, 98. The honor code is kind of completely changed in terms of how that's evolved. It's a really difficult situation. I can't speak too much to the past other than the fact that I had to deal with that with some young men, and most of those things involved, the alcohol and some of those types of things. I've never been involved or certainly in anything like what we're seeing right now. But there seems to be, this is just my perception, and as a former coach, a lot of things are done differently now. And I don't have any idea or thoughts of what's going on with this, but I will just tell you, as I've watched and looked, that there tends to be an attitude from the administration is that we want to work with these young people that have made mistakes. And I'm not specifically talking about this young man because we can talk about that. I don't know the details, the facts, but as I looked at it, had my own personal experiences, one of the things that I felt was really important, having an honor code, and then how do we deal with honor code and how do we deal with whatever the infractions are. But I found recently that there's just so much more mercy and opportunity for second chances. And this current circumstance may not be a situation that we're talking about, but being around it, being in it myself, having an opportunity to work with young people and help them get their lives turned around is something I felt that BYU really made some significant changes. It was a very positive thing. And and obviously these things become very public when you're talking about the issues today. But I think BYU has handled it better than they've ever handled it. I just felt like when I first went to BYU, it was kind of a red line there where, hey, if you do this, you do that, you're removed from school or you're suspended or whatever the circumstances were. This being out, and those were all kind of very private. You know what I mean? I mean, this is very public, and it's very sensitive. And certainly I'm not an expert on what's going on, and those are legal things, and you guys probably can give me some insights on that. But I do believe that as I've watched over the years, and I had my own personal experiences, that there just seems to be a different attitude and a different philosophy as far as the honor code is concerned, and working with young people and helping them turn their lives around.
Yeah, I think in this case, not that it's good for the honor code folk, but once the law gets involved, that sort of gets away from the honor code, and then the law has to. You've had some issues, that in the basketball program and football and probably all the sports where it's not against the law, and that's where the honor code comes in, the ecclesiastical stuff, and so they handle it. But at least the way I would think at this point is that BYU, they can do whatever they want in terms of their own investigation, but the law supersedes everything.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I certainly am not informed enough from even how the honor code works today versus what it looked like in the 90s and the early 2000s. I have no idea, to be honest with you. So I don't want to speak out of turn, but I agree, being so public, criminal action, those are things that people are going to have to, get together and decide what's going on and what's the truth and what's not the truth. There's a he said, she said. You got to work through that. I think the key thing when you make decisions like this is be thorough. Make sure you have all the facts. What we read in the newspaper or what we hear on the radio or, in the evening news, they have to get deep down into this to make sure that their bases are covered. I'm sure both the young man and the young woman have legal teams and people that are dealing with this and helping them, as well as, what's happening with BYU and the honor code. But when you're breaking laws like this, I think that it'll take time. It would be really silly for anybody to jump to conclusions on what's going to happen or not happen. I think you take this one day at a time. You got great attorneys probably from both sides. Just from looking from the outside to inside, just from the things I've read, if they are true, that I doubt that young man will be in a football uniform for BYU. But, again, not having any of the information, I don't know what I've read in the newspaper or watched on the news, but it's a difficult thing for BYU, the football program, for Kalani, and nobody is better at this than Kalani in terms of his relationship with guys and making sure that they're doing the right things. I mean, he's just been a pillar of strength and for that university. So I think between Kalani and, Brian Santiago and all the people that might be involved in this, the league teams, it'll be handled appropriately. It's just really unfortunate to have to kind of deal with this type of thing. It's just really tough. Kind of gave me an ache in my gut, to be honest with you, when you hear about these things and when you don't have maybe all the truth. But it's not good for the perception of any institution, families, or any other circumstances.
Yeah, it's not a criminal case. It's a civil case, which reportedly isn't going to be resolved anytime soon. At least that was one lawyer's opinion. So, we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. All right, the NBA playoffs continue, Steve, and I am curious if you have seen anything that makes you sure that you know what is going to happen going forward, or if there have just been too many wild games in this playoff and you just have to ride the roller coaster.
I think you're going to have to ride the roller coaster. I'd really like to see a Oklahoma City Indiana Pacers final. Is that possible? I don't know, but it'd just be nice to have different people. It appears that here with the Pacers being in a situation where they're up a game, and I like the way they played. They got the Knicks twice at home, which just surprised me, and then of course the Knicks being in a situation where they beat the Pacers 106-100 the other night. Pacers shot the ball. The Knicks shot the ball a lot better, and they came back from 20 points down. So there might be some life in these Knicks. But just looking at that and seeing Towns, who really stepped up for the Knicks in a big way, obviously 20 of 24 points he scored. I think he shot. All of a sudden, I'm forgetting, but I think remind me on what Towns' numbers were at the end. It seemed like he had 20 out of 24 points as that game finished up. What were Towns' numbers?
He finished up 24 points, 15 boards, 8 of 17.
And they had more depth in scoring there. Anunoby had 12, Bridges 15, Towns 24. Browns was, the fact that they were able to win that game with Brunson in foul trouble and to be down 20 says something about the resolve of the Knicks. But I still kind of feel like the Pacers are the team that's going to represent the NBA there in the finals.
Sports as a whole is an entertainment product, right? And that's the way I've always viewed it. It ranks rare with movies, music, theater, whatever it is that you're looking to do outdoors. It's a form of entertainment. And I think what the leagues have done very well is they've adapted the rules when you always have these smart people that are looking for advantages and basically loopholes within the rules, and then they try to take advantage of them, and then it becomes stale and fans don't like it. And where I'm going with this is they're saying a lot of SGA as far as him baiting to get fouls and going to the line, and he says, well, wait a second here. And he did shoot the second most amount of free throws in the regular season next to Giannis. And he's saying, I actually had, and I don't know this, but he said this, I haven't looked it up. He said, I've shot more free throws in other seasons. It's just now it's more of a spotlight because we're in the Western Conference Finals, blah, blah, blah. And so you go on social media and you look at it and people saying something's got to be done. It is an entertainment league, and they've got to make sure that aesthetically it is about pleasing the fan base because that's how everybody makes money. What do you think about him drawing these fouls? I don't necessarily have a problem with him doing it because until something has changed, like Harden used to take that ball, swing it from right to left above the free throw line. Somebody would put their hands in. The next thing you know, he's flailing his arms and he's got 3 free throws. Well, they addressed that, and that was awful. That needed to be addressed. What do you think about him with these fouls? Is it something that the league needs to take care of?
I think the league probably is taking care of it as we speak in terms of looking and watching film. And I don't think the NBA and SGA are going to be involved in conversations about things. But at the end of the day, this is prime time. And no matter what players are always going to complain about fouls and complain about this and complain about that. And do I think that the elite players get calls at times? I watched Michael Jordan get a lot of calls in his day and watching that. So I don't think that's going to go away. You do want to kind of protect. I'm not indicating that the officials start a game and feeling, hey, we're going to have to watch what's going here. But they watch film. I remember many years ago talking to an official that was in the NBA, and the amount of film and the amount of critique of their body of work and things that they do. I know these officials and these officials organizations are very detailed and very much want to get this thing right. And then when you have a guy like SGA who seems to be shooting an inordinate number of free throws, I think they're looking at that. But the bottom line is he has a ball in his hands a significant amount of time. I don't know what percentage of time he's on the floor and how much shot selection and not shot selection, but number of shots. But it seems pretty normal to me that an all-star, big-time guy that's carrying his, Oklahoma City maybe towards an NBA championship, that we understand that that's going to happen. And even though he gets all the attention and he's talking and jabbing, I just can't imagine the officials and the integrity of officials and what's happening there, that he's going to change their mind on something. And to the fact that he has the ball in his hand, has high volume, takes a high volume shots, yeah, he's going to be the guy who gets fouled. He's going to be the guy that makes big baskets. He's going to be the guy that misses big baskets. I don't think it's going to impact officials. I think it does exist. But I think as you look at the playoffs here, there's so much scrutiny right now. As you watch those games, there's replay after replay after replay. If the officials are getting that wrong time and time again, I think they'll self-correct and they take care of that. The greatest players in the NBA day are going to have the ball in their hands. They're going to be in circumstances and situations where they're going to get a lot of calls, good or bad. But I haven't seen anything that really upset me as I've watched the games. He's just a phenomenal player. He's an NBA MVP, and he's got a team right now, a young team that's playing with a lot of confidence. So the win the other night, the 2-point win was incredible, and Randall kind of just disappeared. I mean, I don't even know how that could possibly happen, that he could play that poorly in that kind of situation. But I'm excited about OKC. I'd love to see him in the finals.
I do get your point about the players always going to complain. And honestly, I also think there's just a segment of the public, media, or fans, both of them, who are always going to complain. The thing about SGA and the way he plays, and you're right, he's never taken more three-pointers. He's never taken more shots. It's his second highest free throw total, looking at the numbers right now. But the guy still goes to the rim a lot. And he's not Giannis going to the rim. He's not the Joker. He's not a 7-footer going to the rim. And he will go and he will attack those guys. And it just seems like, well, of course he's going to end up shooting free throws. Now, his three-pointers are trending up, but he still goes and shoots 2-pointers like in a 3-to-1 ratio. So he's not, all he does is shoot three-point shots, guys. So I don't see really how it can change. I don't know how they and man, I didn't know baseball was going to make the bags bigger either. So maybe there's some tweak out there that the NBA is going to do. The NBA, the Major League Baseball pitch clock to me didn't come out of nowhere, but the bags getting bigger, that one surprised me. I just don't know what they're going to do against a guy who's this athletic, who's willing to challenge bigger guys in an era where we want guys to get in the paint and we want more contact and we don't want guys just running up lunch and threes.
No, here's the thing I really like about this situation is that he has number you mentioned it earlier. He's gonna shoot the ball more than anybody on the floor, and I think what happens is that his ability to develop and how to get to the rim and get into the paint area and score with mid-range, score at the rim, is really unique for a guy that everybody looks at as a three-point shooter. But the way I look at it is that the three-point shooting, his ability to shoot the three was such success. Is that defenders have to come out and they have to close out and they have to attack and they have to switch. There's so much attention to him being 25 or 30 feet away where it opens and creates space. That's why you see him getting to the rim more often, because they are so, obviously everyone's really conscious about him knocking threes down. And what's just crazy is I've watched college and high school and NBA, and the fact that three-point line has gone farther back, and they still continue to shoot with great expertise. But what's happened is opened the floor. And it just gives opportunities. It creates help situations that are very difficult. But that's what makes him so good, is that his ability to shoot from deep places and throughout and around the floor allow him now to really take advantage of guys that have stretched out and shooters on the corners ready to, kick it to him, kick it to them if he gets stopped. He just makes things really difficult for team defenses. And I think because he's so aggressive and he's been so effective at getting in and around the rim and scoring that it's hard to help. And then now if they have to send two people at him, then somebody else is wide open for a shot. So watching him play has been really fun for me to see how he kind of just takes over games. And he obviously is just shooting the lights out. It's just been fun to watch him. But I think his ability, we're going to see more and more of his ability to break down defenders when there's lots of space and he can create for mid-range. And if they sag off him, obviously, he's going to knock threes down from 30 feet. It doesn't matter what the distance is. He just seems to have great range and a feel for his game and so much confidence. And I think if anything, in my experience of coaching for many years, is as I watch players grow and develop and things I didn't want players to do, but I saw that over time they were effective and they had confidence, I took the reins off and said, you know what, I trust you. And I'm sure this coaching staff trusts him. And it's just made them a better team and really difficult and hard to guard.
Speaking, Cleve, of watching guys who grow and develop, Jalen Williams, the 12th pick out of Santa Clara, we've got his brother on the Jazz, and he had a lousy rookie season, but he's just a kid. He's a young pope, skinny as a rail. He's got to get bigger and all that. Jalen, his older brother, just turned 24 last month, so it's not like he's a old, wily veteran. He's been in the league. This is his third year, and he's really, really blossomed. I think that the difference, maybe if you're looking for a Jazz fan, and that's where I want to go with your thought, do you see any hope as far as him being able to develop like his brother, knowing that I believe his brother stayed 3 years in college, and Cody's a one-and-doner?
I was going to mention that. That was the first thing I was going to mention, is that he spent 3 years. I mean, honestly, I remember watching those games in the WCC and when BYU was playing and other games, but I fell in love with Jalen Williams. I mean, I just thought, oh my gosh, this kid is so good, and he's I didn't, when I was watching those games, I didn't think of him as an NBA guy. I was just thinking this is a really good college player, and then I watched him develop and get stronger, and I found myself looking for Santa Clara games when he was in college, and obviously when they were playing BYU, I'd pick up on those. But I looked for opportunities because I was just so impressed on how much better he got. And obviously now he's doing it at the highest level. In terms of, I think the advantages for his brother, younger brother, is that he has a brother who has so much experience, and he's surrounded himself with all the, between the training and all of the effort that goes into getting yourself in great shape and getting your body right. When you get to the technical things of being able to how to play this game, I think what a great opportunity for a younger brother to spend time, watch film, talk to his brother, do things that are away from the court. And I got to believe, I mean, during the season, they're in the season, and it takes time, and this young man's young. But I can't imagine having an older brother who has taken a career path, not so much in the way they did it in college because he was a one and done, but to have a big brother that can help him and help him get through this and navigate this so that, he can develop and get better. And they do. It does take time, but I think it's a great asset for him to have that resource to help him get better, to be able to have an impact for the Jazz or anybody else he plays for.
And he was the very definition of a teenager trying to compete with grown men. I mean, you had to look at him for about 3 seconds and think, well, he's got to grow into his body and get stronger and all that. And I think when you look at the playoffs and the teams that have gotten to the conference finals, most of these players most of the elite players were not top 10 picks, and most of them changed teams. Anthony Edwards is different. He was the number 1 pick, and he's with the team that drafted him. But giving up on guys too young, man, it just seems like development in the long game, you gotta play it, or you're going to end up watching somebody that you had who's now 26 somewhere else and crushing it for that team and thinking, should we have stuck with him for a while longer?
I completely agree with you. I got a question for you guys, because I think that's a difficult thing. I've wondered where somebody does put in that time, and they get themselves in a situation, and then all of a sudden things aren't going well, and they get rid of him or they trade him and do things. You get in that trading mode where a player loses confidence, and I think that for me, and looking at the pro coaches, and I don't know a lot of them, it's not like I have relationships with them, but there is such support there that I got to believe that behind the scenes, whether it's working with the kid's mind and his mental approach to it, to his physicality and getting stronger, and then getting his confidence, and playing whether it's playing internationally or playing in a G League, or all the development leagues that there are, that I think the sources are there, the resources are there, that there is an opportunity for a young man like that. I mean, it's difficult, and not just with the Jazz, but what is the time frame when you give up on a guy or you trade him? And I guess there's lots of circumstances that would deal with that, with other players and drafts and trades. That it can be a little bit convoluted for me in terms of how this is all going to play out. But I do like the fact, I think a big part of having younger players that are physically not ready yet, not strong enough, I think the things you do away from that court to help them get mentally and physically and every other way to have confidence and not lose their confidence. Because you can imagine how many times have we seen guys go in and 2 or 3 or 4 years down the road, they're playing in Europe or they're playing somewhere else, and it felt like people gave up on them. But again, I understand management, I understand coaches and GMs, they need it done now. But being patient enough with a player like this to give him a chance, and then, after 2 or 3 years, 4 years, if it's not happening, that individual is going to be traded or playing somewhere else in the world. But I do believe that the internal part of that and helping develop young men and having confidence is having, I don't know how many coaches are there on the Jazz staff? Would you guess 15?
Yeah, there's a couple rows of suits. Well, not suits anymore, but team gear. Team gear.
I mean, I'm thinking to myself, and I'm not there, and I'm sure they are doing this, but if they're not, it would be a big mistake to take these good coaches that have specific roles to help develop players, and the most difficult part is not having the playing time and opportunity to get that confidence. So they haven't been playing those development leagues, and I think the NBA is doing a better job with that. But it's still a very difficult thing for guys that aren't physically ready. And so I would imagine with weight room or diet or whatever it might be, that's on the Jazz, and that's what they have to do when they draft a young man like that. They got to be committed to, changing his body, changing his mind, and maybe working on a 3-ball, whatever it might be. That's what they do. That's what they do full time.
That's a great question for Danny Ainge. How do you know when it's time to move on from a player? But you probably have better access to Danny than we do. So ask him and get back to us.
I will. I will ask him.
Get to the bottom of that. All right. Thanks, Steve. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
There's Steve Cleveland. A reminder: DJ and PK proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. And a reminder, join Hans and Scotty at RGS Exteriors today from noon to 3, 4235 Farm Road in West Jordan. When we come back, we're talking TCU football with Steven Johnson. Covers the Horned Frogs, our spring football tour. Takes us to TCU, the Fort Worth Star Telegram TCU beat writer next, right here on The Zone.
Joining us now is Steven Johnson. He is the TCU beat writer for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Steven, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Doing well, man. We're going to take a trip around the conference and TCU, the Horned Frogs. Decent season last year. Bounced back from the year before. Interesting, the plane that they've been on 2 years, 3 years getting into the title game, and then after that, struggling. 6-3, 9-4. I consider that a decent season. What's the overall feeling as far as the Horned Frogs going into next season?
The expectation is they want to improve on the season they have. They have full expectations on hopefully being one of the two teams that make it to AT&T for the Big 12 title game. You bring back Josh Hoover at quarterback. You bring back some key defensive pieces like Bud Clark at safety and Nnamdi Obiezor at linebacker. So they feel like they got the experience. They have continuity with both coordinators. This will be Kendall Brow's third season and Andy Avalos' second season, and the defense kind of showed improvement down the stretch. So they think they have everything in place that they need to get back to the Big 12 title game.
So I listened to Sonny Dykes' spring recap, and then I read a piece by you, I think it was on May 15th, and where I'm going with this is the portal, the transfers. So I think it's a couple days old, so you never know. It changes almost daily. But from what I gather is they signed 12 transfers, but they lost only 4, none in the 2 deep. That's got to be considered a positive sign.
Yeah, just about. It might be higher than 4, but honestly, they might have lost some guys in the winter portal. I can't remember off the top of my head. But basically, they didn't really lose anybody that I think they wanted to keep. Most of the guys that left are kind of transferred down to like a North Texas, UTSA or things of that like, which, that's just going to happen just because of attrition and guys want to eventually play. So, but I think this was absolutely a positive sign for TCU. They were able to keep Josh Hoover away from, some teams that were kind of poking around, seeing if they could kind of get him to enter the portal. So I think now you're at the point where if you're Sonny Dykes, this is year 4 for him. This is pretty much his roster. There may be a handful of guys still here from the Gary Patterson era, but this is his roster, his coaching staff. This is now his program fully. And I think that's given him a little bit more. When you talk to him during spring practice, you could definitely kind of feel the confidence, feel the determination off of him. Like I think he kind of feels settled in at home now. And I think the fact that they weren't so aggressive in the transfer portal, that 12 number, and one of those guys is a long snapper. That's the fewest transfer they signed since he got here at the end of 2021. So he feels good about the internal development of some of the recruits they signed and the depth they have on both sides of the ball.
Start offensively. 2 big-time receivers, Williams to Green Bay, Beck to Raiders. That's a 3rd-round pick, 2nd-round pick. Obviously, those guys are expected to have an impact in the NFL going that high. So Hoover, as far as who is he going to throw to, Sonny Dykes was talking about that they had Major Everhart and Jordan Bailey that they need to get back healthy. He believes they will be healthy for camp when it opens in August. Terry Sheldon, 6'4" kid, they like him. And then they picked up a couple of transfers, Joseph Manjack from Houston and Jordan Dwyer from Idaho. Give us an assessment at the receiver position.
Well, Eric McAllister is the name you really need to know. I think he could easily be one of the best receivers in the Big 12. He was kind of the 6th man last year. Still had, I think, well over 700 yards, even though he was with Savion Jack and J.P. Richardson, another guy that signed an NFL contract. So they have an unquestioned number 1 receiver, a guy that I think can easily top 1,000 yards. Jordan Dwyer is probably the guy I would look at as like the number 2 guy just based off what you're seeing at camp. He can stretch the field. He has really good hands for a guy that's probably known more as a deep threat, as a speedster. So those are 2 guys I think they can really build around. I don't think Shelton will contribute much this year. I just think he's a little ways off, but there is another freshman named Ed Small, the guy that can play in the slot in case Major or Jordan aren't healthy. So I think they're in a good spot at the outside receivers with Eric and Jordan Dwyer. Now you're just kind of trying to figure out who can play inside between Small, Bailey, Everhart. Manjack, I think, will kind of be moved all over as well, too. So they have some options. They have some depth there. They just need, obviously, the guys like Major and Jordan. Those are those quick twitch guys that you can just kind of throw those bubble screens to, and they can take them they can take a 2-yard gain to a 20-yard gain. So they would definitely open up the offense. I don't know if the receiver corps will be as good this year, but I think they should have more depth if they can keep these guys healthy.
Yeah, he also had mentioned Small as far as a special teams guy, too, as someone to watch and didn't miss a rep in spring ball. Offensive line, Rasheed Jackson. Now they're moving Colton Deary to center. He likes that group. McCabe says he's played a lot of football, and they got more depth there. But when I listened to Coach Dykes talk, it didn't seem like, and you know way more about it than I do, Steven Johnson, TCU beat writer from Fort Worth, Star-Telegram joining us, that he was particularly set on 5 guys, that it looks like that's a work in progress, something that they need to solve when they get to camp. Is that accurate?
Based on the spring, it seemed like they had their 5 to me.
Okay.
Deary will certainly be starting at the center spot. They have Cade Bennett, a guy who missed all of last year, San Diego State transfer. He was a 2-time All-Mountain West Conference selection. And I think they really missed him last year. So I'm pretty sure he's going to be at one of the guards. They have Ben Taylor Whitfield at one tackle spot and redshirt freshman Ryan Hughes at another tackle spot. Both those guys are solid. I would be really surprised if either is really pushed or challenged in the fall camp. So at least in my mind, I think one of those guard spots might be up for grabs. But I think overall they feel pretty good about at least 4 of the 5 starting spots. They just want to kind of get that other spot kind of filled out.
Who's going to be running back? I couldn't figure that out for anything. I don't know what's going on there.
I think if I had to pick somebody, I think it would be Nate Palmer. I believe he's a redshirt freshman. He might be a sophomore. But I think there'll be a committee approach, but I think Nate Palmer will be the guy I would expect to get the first carry when they play North Carolina. I just think he provides the best blend of explosiveness, running hard, being able to catch in the flat, catch these routes. You know, they love running their running backs on wheel routes. And he's not the biggest back, but he's also a willing blocker. So I think he's just the most versatile. So he's the guy that I think had the best spring out of all the running backs, and he would be the guy I would lean to as being the starter right now.
Defensively, Coach Dykes was raving about the linebackers. You already mentioned one. I think you mentioned 2, and then Caleb Cortez has an opportunity to really be a strength. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Caleb Elarms Orr is probably the other guy he was talking about. He was another guy. He was at Cal in 2023. He was all Pac-12 linebacker going up against Caleb Williams and Bo Nix and those guys. It was kind of like the 6th man last year of the linebacker group, so now he should be kind of filling in as a starting role. And I think between him, Namdi, and Max Carroll, they might have the most athletic linebacker room in the Big 12 just in terms of guys that can move from sideline to sideline just with their overall explosiveness. They signed Michael Thiessen from Missouri State, which I think is a big addition in terms of just depth. Because if either one of those 3 guys goes down, then it could get really bleak for them. So I think at the top they'll be really good. But after those 4 guys are just named, it's going to be a lot of true freshmen, a lot of guys that haven't played before. So I think the hope for them is that they just keep those guys healthy. They think they can be one of the best units in the country.
Was this right? Did I catch this right? Sonny said they had 20 freshmen that came in early and were in spring ball. Is that accurate?
Yeah, just about. Might have been 18 or so, but yeah, they had a lot of early enrollees there. Guys like Ed Small, Terry Shelton, Adam Schobel, quarterback. They had a lot of some of their DBs in secondary. So it was the biggest group of freshmen I ever seen kind of enroll early. And I know you guys, they do things differently down here in Texas. So I think it was definitely impressive, and I think it was big for guys. Chad Woodfork is another guy, top 100 recruit, was able to get on campus, get some valuable reps. So I think it was big for all those young guys to get on campus. And, during spring ball, you guys got in and out of the lineup. So a lot of those guys were able to get reps with the first team, the second team, and I think that was just valuable, very valuable for their development.
Steven Johnson, TCU beat writer for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, joining us. Cornerbacks, I think in secondary as a whole, I think it's going to be important that no matter what school you are with, that your secondary is good. Last year in the Big 12 was sort of the year of the running back. I think 7 guys are moving on to the NFL from various teams in the Big 12. And this year, I think that it might be a little bit more the year of the quarterback, because there are a lot of returning quarterbacks that are going to be on rosters this season, and obviously TCU has one of them in Hoover. And so your defensive backfield needs to be strong. I think they get a boost from sophomore Vernon Glover, who played as a freshman and then redshirted. I think he might have had some injuries last year. And you got Chan in Canada, you got McGee and McIver, and then also he felt, Sonny did, that there's a group of young corners that are ready to make their move. And then also at safety there, just evaluate that position or those positions.
Yeah, I think yeah. So with them, they'll get two guys back, Vernon Glover and Avery Helm, both missed last year with season-ending injuries. They got hurt. I think Avery got hurt first, and Vernon got hurt the very next day. So having those two guys back, I think obviously adds a lot of depth to the room. Channing Canada and Javon McIver were two of the guys I think have really strong springs. So I think TCU could easily be 5 or 6 deep at the cornerback spot. And at safety, I think that could be another strength of the team led by Bud Clark, who I think is going to be one of the best safeties in the country. I think Pro Football Focus had him graded as a top 5 safety last season, so he could be a guy that could earn maybe some preseason All-American, preseason All-Big 12 honors. They've got Austin Jordan, a Texas transfer. He kind of filling in at the nickel spot. So I think overall, and they also got Jamel Johnson. He was a guy that I think was willing to leave, or he was about to enter the portal, but they were able to keep him for another year. So I think just overall, the secondary is probably the deepest part of the roster. They got experienced guys, they got transfers, they got young guys. They have it all there. So they're hoping this could be the best secondary Dykes has had while he's been in Fort Worth.
Up front, getting pressure. I know they got a transfer from Washington State. They're going to be okay to be able to get pressure on the quarterback and handle the line of scrimmage?
I think so. Like I said, it's another group where they feel they're a lot deeper. Zach Chapman was a guy that earned some freshman All-American honors last year. They have Davian Dill, Ansel Din-Mabah, the guy you just missed from Washington State. He led the Pac-12, or he led Washington State in sacks last year. And they also have Marcus Dill, former 4-star recruit, rising guy. I think could be one of the better defensive linemen in the Big 12. If he takes another step with his development. So all across the board is they feel a lot better about the depth they have. Last year, I think they maybe only had 5 or 6 defensive linemen they really felt they could really throw in there. That number might be twice as much this year. So I just think the theme overall is we're deeper here at these key spots than we were a year ago. And now I think they have a lot more different body types than they had even 2 seasons ago when they were still running 3-3-5. Which, most of your defensive linemen, they're going to be run blockers, run stuffers, trying to take up 2 blocks at a time. Now they have guys that are run stoppers. They have guys that are long, 6'4", 6'5". They're like edge rushers. So I think they have more versatility that they can attack and kind of adjust to different teams they'll face.
Stephen Johnson, TCU beat writer for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, joining us. Sonny was talking about turnovers last year, and you look at their schedule. He says that was a major reason for the strong finish. And you look at it, at one point they were 3-3. They had lost 3 of 4 once they got into conference play, and then also the SMU loss, which was, I think, did he get ejected in that game? It's a high-scoring game. SMU won 66-42. But then once you got, they came up to Salt Lake, and that slugfest of 13-7 that they won. They only lost 1 game the back half of their schedule. That was by 3 points to Baylor, at Baylor. So they finished real strong. How much do they need to control those turnovers? Because he was talking about once they got them under control, that was a big difference in then having success in the second half of the season.
Well, I think it all starts with the run game. I think a lot of those early turnovers were a result of Josh Hoover kind of trying to force the issue, trying to do too much, which he kind of had to do just because their run game was just, I think it was definitely the worst in the Big 12. Only Colorado, I think, had a worse rushing offense than TCU, which should tell you a lot. So I think if they're able to kind of supplement it and not force him to do as much with his arm, I think that'll be the key in kind of, limiting those turnovers. But we also know turnovers is just kind of, there's a little bit of luck involved with it, getting the fumble. There might be an interception, kind of is a deflection or things like that. So I think those things are a little bit harder to control. But I think if you're able to establish a run game and you're not asking Josh Hoover to throw it 40 times a game, that'll only enhance the chances of you guys, TCU has, of winning the turnover margin. And historically under Sonny Dykes, if they win the turnover battle, they typically win the game. So I think he's on to something there. I think it all starts with just not forcing Josh Hoover to do so much under center.
Several years ago when Gary Patterson's was, I think it was during the 2008 season when Utah went to the Sugar Bowl, I was covering the game, and I'm sitting in the press box, and you know how they have the sheet and they list the rosters, and they had the entire roster for TCU, and I was bored at halftime or something. And I think I counted that of all the guys on the team or on the travel roster that they listed, only 4 were not from the state of Texas, which just blew me away. And now we hear Kyle Whittingham at Utah has been talking about that since they're in the Big 12, they've sort of de-emphasized a little bit California and beefed up the Texas recruiting and the opportunity because it has such a presence now in that state in the Big 12. Can you speak to how many prospects, Division I prospects, there are in your state? Because it seems like it's just like every high school has 10 or 15 or 20. I mean, that's outrageous, but I'm trying to make a point of just how good Texas football is at the high school level.
Well, it's definitely deep here. I mean, obviously there are a ton of schools in the Big 12, the SEC, and that probably live off of Texas recruiting. Like, it's a state that provides the basis of talents for TCU, SMU, Texas, Baylor, Texas Tech. All these schools in Texas, they all want to start with kind of – you can't really put up a fence around Texas unless you're maybe the Longhorns or so. But I think everybody knows there's enough talent in here where you can – 6, 7 Power 4 programs can all, form their foundation in the state of Texas. Or even all the way down to 1A private school. There's talent all over here. You'll find a 5-star at a town of 2,000 people. So I just think the depth overall, the passion the state has for football just results in them producing so much football talent. And honestly, maybe the only spot that there isn't high-level football might be kind of in those western Texas part that are kind of, there's not much there, but even in places like Lubbock, El Paso, Brownsville, and things like that, you'll still find 4 stars and 5 stars and things like that. So I think just knowing a state this big that you can just kind of drop a pin anywhere, and there's probably going to be a 4-star or a 3-star within 10 miles. I just think that helps so many programs around the country, and it makes sense if you're Utah why you want to get more into Texas as opposed to California.
Stephen, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Okay, that is Stephen Johnson, TCU beat writer for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram.
When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are on the way.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know.
News update.
This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NBA.
8 seconds to shoot. Near corner McConnell, back to top and right edge, on top to Halliburton. Here comes a long three. Court to Mathurin and into the corner where Siakam hits a three and then turns to the New York bench. He's got 24 points. Timeout, New York. Halliburton for Indiana, left to right in yellow, down the right side, gliding through the air and laying it in.
The most combination points, rebounds, assists, steals with no turnovers in a game ever. Ever. What is that? Did you know that? And what is that like to do that?
No, I didn't know that. I feel like we making up stats at some point to make me look better. But I think I'm just trying to play the right way, man. I just want to impact winning.
Well, he did impact winning. That's Tyrese Halliburton, who had 32 points, 12 rebounds, 15 assists, and 0 turnovers. And Indiana gets the win. They beat New York 130-121. They are up 3-1. That was impressive, PK. We were talking about the difference between being a good player on a hot streak and being a star, and the stars do it over and over and over. So if Halliburton can play like this over and over and over, he's going to be a star, but SGA's got 3 years like this in the bank, so he's the MVP. But Halliburton, that was another impressive showing by him.
No question. Yeah, if he continues to do this, he will certainly elevate himself to star status. You can make a strong argument he's en route to that very thing. I've got no problem with that. He's doing it on the biggest stage that he has available to him right now, and so far so good. It was a normal game, not these crazy 20-point swings. It was one team having the lead and then pretty much holding on to it. New York making a little bit of a run and then answering by the Pacers. It was more traditional basketball, what we're known for. And it was a good enough game for me. Wasn't crazy, but Halliburton, it'd be fun to watch. Up 3-1 now. If you don't close it out, all these stats and who cares?
Yeah, it's not going to matter, right?
Yeah.
You can't blow a 3-1 lead. Teams blow 3-1 leads, and we're talking about it a decade later. Looking at you, Golden State.
Oh, I'm looking directly at them. It's like they're right in front of my face.
Right?
Yeah, when was that?
It was about a decade ago.
Oh.
They were up 3-1 or down 3-1 in the Western Final and beat Oklahoma City, then got up 3-1 and lost to Cleveland in the NBA Finals.
They've never gotten over it.
The Knicks need a little more bench. Think they're getting worn down and worn out. Pacers trying to push the tempo as much as possible.
Grab some bench. That's what Ken Hawk Harrelson used to say on Strike 3.
Grab some bench.
Well, I mean, you got the kid from the U of A, Matherin, scoring 20 points in only 12 minutes. Goes to the line 11 times. That was a huge boost for the Pacers there. So trying to compete with that. It's sort of hard to have a really good bench in the postseason. There's not that many opportunities. I mean, they only had 3 guys play double figures for the Knicks in terms of minutes, which is not that unusual. And Shamet just got in 11. That's it. So you're basically playing 7 guys. I think your best players are going to carry you in the postseason. I don't think that's a new story.
Tonight, Oklahoma City trying to wrap it up. They're up 3-1 on Minnesota. They're hosting Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals, 6:30 on ESPN. I assume they're going to do it. I assume they have beaten Minnesota mentally, and now they just got to go out there and get the 4th win.
So you're picking the favorite?
Hard to believe. Isn't everybody? Do you know anybody who's picking Minnesota at this point?
I don't think every single penny is bet on the Oklahoma City Thunder. I just don't know who it is, but I'm pretty sure that's
somebody out there.
Yeah.
Even if they don't think they win, they get the points. The points. That'll do it. I get the points, and that'll make all the difference.
Yeah, I don't know that points matter in the NBA with so many garbage points being available to score.
Oklahoma City's an 8.5-point favorite tonight. Denver Nuggets guard Russell Westbrook undergoing surgery on his right hand, repairing multiple ligament tears. Also, Westbrook also said he was having surgery to fix, quote, 2 breaks that happened during the season. So, apparently his hand was messed up. Former NBA star Shawn Kemp pleading guilty to an assault charge yesterday for shooting at 2 men inside a vehicle in a Washington State mall parking lot. 55-year-old Kemp pled guilty to second-degree assault. Incident occurred in March of 2023. It's part of a plea agreement.
I can't believe it. They still have malls?
Yes, they still have malls, PK. And
Fiesta
people still
Mall
go to them.
in Mesa, totally mowed down. I used to live right across the street from it. Many of our listeners in the East Valley, because we have a few here from Arizona that are up here now, the entire mall does no longer exist.
I guess the Cottonwood Mall would be the equivalent here. They're putting a lot of residential in there.
Who goes to malls? I haven't been to a mall in years.
Yeah. Just a park and ride, right? Use the edge of that. But malls are reinventing themselves. We got a mall here that's going to have hockey rinks in it and an NHL team practicing there and youth games and all sorts of stuff. So the mall must be reinvented. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NFL.
What do you think about possibly Aaron Rodgers being the quarterback?
That's a joke. He shouldn't. That is just, to me, is a joke. What are you going to bring him in for 1 year? Are you kidding me? I mean,
that's not the Steelers' way, right?
No, man. That guy needs to stay in California and go,
Thank
go
you.
somewhere and chew on bark. And and whisper to the gods out there.
100%. These guys on the show, Mr. Bradshaw, know I'm not a fan of his. We've been around each other personally, and he was not a kind person.
Now, he does not. I had to go over and introduce myself to him. He's not. I had to go, hey, Aaron, I'm Terry Bradshaw. I know he knows me, but I just felt like I better tell him who I am. Yeah. And not, you walk in there and you get in his presence and you feel like it's going to start snowing.
Well, so that's the obvious bias. If he would have kissed him on the lips, he would have loved him.
Right. There you go. Yeah. That's Terry Bradshaw upset at Aaron Rodgers. Why would the Steelers sign him for 1 year? That is the heart of the issue. You're going to get enough success out of 1 year, maybe 2? Or should you move on? Is he a bridge to what?
I guess I would ask Tampa Bay. How'd that work?
Tom Brady for 3 years in a Super Bowl?
Worked well, didn't it?
It did. Do you think Aaron Rodgers is playing at that level?
It's not a question of whether he's playing at that level. It's a question of if he's the best that he can be as far as for the Steelers. Is the best that he can get. I don't have to be fast. I just have to be faster than you if a bear is chasing us. That doesn't make me fast. But if it's the best that I can do and they get somebody better, who you got?
Kirk Cousins, the Atlanta Falcons, beginning their OTAs without Kirk Cousins in attendance. He's reportedly angling to be a starting quarterback somewhere in the NFL this fall. It's unlikely to be in Atlanta, where Michael Penix Jr. seems entrenched. So now we can listen to this for days and weeks until we find out where Kirk Cousins gets moved, if he gets moved. Broncos are going to induct Demaryius Thomas into the team's Ring of Honor this fall. Thomas died on December 9, 2021, just days before his 34th birthday, of the Fulton County medical examiner called complications of a seizure disorder. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college football.
Another day, another college football playoff model. Greg Sankey and the SEC have reportedly looked closely at a proposed 5+11 model for the college football playoff, which would include the 5 highest-ranked conference champions and 11 at-large bids. History says the SEC would have averaged at least 5 teams in such a field with straight seeding. The league has also proposed guaranteeing themselves 4 automatic qualifiers in a format that also gives 4 berths to the Big Ten, 2 to the ACC and Big 12, and 1 to the G6. So you'll probably end up with about the same field, but along the way, can you create another weekend full of drama and have more teams playing on Conference Championship weekend, which now becomes qualifier weekend? I don't know what they'll come up with some term for.
What do you mean by more teams?
Well, instead of having 1 Big Ten championship game in this format, 1 would still play 2, but 3 would play 6, 4 would play 5, and there'd be automatic berths in this tournament for the winner of the other games.
So you're going to play the whole season, and then it just...
Yep, and then they'll have a Big Ten tripleheader, and they'll have an SEC tripleheader, and presumably there would be doubleheaders for the Big 12 and ACC, and they get paid more money.
Well, why wouldn't they just have playoffs then?
In a way they are, but this way the conferences don't have to split the money with anybody else. They build it into their TV packages.
Yeah, I don't see. You're going to have a playoff between the 3 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
What's the point of the regular season then? That just makes it a joke. That was college football's big thing, is that every week matters and all that type of stuff. Now it really doesn't.
I think that would end up becoming a coin toss. Some years you'd have 3 and they're a couple games better than 6. Another year it might break a tie between 2 teams that didn't play each other. You know,
still makes the regular season a joke. You can spin it any way you want.
Well, I don't think it would have been a joke in the Big 12 if 4, 7, and 2 teams played each other and bids were on the line. But that
but
just because it worked out
man?
that year.
So sit
Just
a guy out. You're in that thing in the end of the regular season. Sit him out because the next week is far more important than this week. It makes it a joke.
And I do think we could absolutely see that in the Big Ten. And
I
SEC
want more opt-outs. That's what I need.
Because the 1 and 2 seeds would both be locked in. And Georgia went to the playoffs last year and didn't have their starting quarterback because he got hurt in the SEC title game, and they got beat in the playoffs right out of the gate. So, yeah, I can totally see where that would happen. That's a law of unintended consequences waiting to swing into action right there.
Stupid consequences. It's completely. I can call it now, and it hasn't even started. How is that unintended?
Bulldogs coach Kirby Smart said that most coaches in the SEC want a single transfer portal window versus the two currently. He favors one in January. Others saying the spring window would fit better with academic calendars, the proposed revenue share, fiscal years, etc.
As long as the coaches just have a singular, I'm all for it.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
One portal for coaching moves. Now, This is your group.
No, I want to limit you, but I can do whatever I want. Because what you're doing causes me anguish, and you must stop.
This is difficult. Meanwhile, if I quit right before a bowl game or a playoff game or a conference title game, no big deal.
And not just that, you quit on the Monday after and claim you had no discussions until after your game Saturday night.
Liar.
Right. Just stop it.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
Ellie hammers this thing to right field. This is well hit. It is deep and it ain't coming back. Gone into the fountains. Into the second tier of the fountains in right field. Ellie, have a night.
He swings, hits a high fly ball to left and deep. Kwan going back, he's to the track. He looks up, that ball's gone. A home run, it's number 20 for Ohtani.
Pitch to him. Fly ball deep right, it's going to win the game. Abreu's going back and watching it sail. It's a grand slam. Oh my goodness, Christian Yelich. He walks it off in grand fashion. The Brewers win it 5-1 in the 10th. How do you do?
Highlights from around Major League Baseball right there. Stop me if this sounds familiar, but Shohei Ohtani homered again. Third game in a row. 20th time this year. The show must go on. The show will go on as long as Ohtani has a bat in his hand. How many homers does he have to hit to get rid of the pitching thing, you think? Is there a point where they say
0?
He's so valuable. Except he was so good when he pitched.
Was he? He broke down twice.
Oh, it's true. But he was also good. He got people out until he broke down.
Not expensive. Not expensive to hitting.
Yeah. And then he doesn't get to hit for you for a while.
It's going well.
Christian Yelich walking it off. Grand slam. Bottom of the 10th inning. So have a celebration at the plate. Brewers get the win over the Red Sox. The Cubs also walked it off, 4-3 over the Rockies in 11 because everybody beats the Rockies. When did bat flips become okay? Wasn't there a time when flipping the bat, the Bob Gibson or somebody would hit you in the ear the next time up?
Well, you went
knock
way
you
back.
Down.
Bautista had a big fight after doing it, and then the following season. I don't have to go back to Bob Gibson, so that's far more recent.
Jackson Merrill with a massive bat flip. Almost looked like he threw the thing into the dugout. He threw it so far. He homers. Padres win 8-6. He's been out injured and missed a bunch of time, so I guess he was excited as he flipped that bat and celebrated.
I guess you were too.
Pirates with a 7-run 8th inning. They come back to beat the Diamondbacks 9-6. Comeback of the night. Bees lost 4-3 to Tacoma in their series opener. Game 2 tonight. First pitch set for 7 o'clock. Tony Parks will be on the air on 1280 The Zone at 6:50. DJ and PK.
Hashtag RSL.
Two ice cold teams. Will somebody get a win? Real Salt Lake, Austin FC.
It sounded like you said high school.
Ice cold.
Ice cold.
It did almost sound like high school.
No. Ice cold.
Which I would have been fine.
Winless in the last 5, winless in the last 6. Neither team's had a win in a while. This is RSL's last chance to win in the month of May. First kick set for tonight at 6:30. Coverage starts at 5:30.
Good luck to you guys.
Thank you. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NHL.
It's McDavid. Left circle, Nugent Hopkins tracks in front. Tap tone, Corey Perry. Power play goal. The Oilers regain the lead. 2-1. Kapanen wins the draw. Kulak and Ernst the D pairing. A lead pass. Kapanen has an empty net and pokes it home. Empty netter. Kasperi Kapanen. Edmonton extends to a 3-1 lead with 2:27 to play.
3 power play goals, 2 empty netters. In the end, Edmonton beats the Dallas Stars 4-1, the final score, and they lead that series 3-1. That's the Western Conference Final. In the East, Florida's up 3-1 on Carolina, and they can wrap it up Game 5 tonight, 6 o'clock on TNT. That is what is trending. It's brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. No job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. Coming up, 8:30, Matt Murschel, UCF Knights beat and college football ride for the Orlando Sentinel. Our spring football tour to UCF. And Scott Frost work his magic again. Andy Bailey, NBA writer and analyst for Bleacher Report at 9 o'clock. We're now less than a month away from the NBA draft. We'll talk with Andy Bailey about that. It's also a Win Tickets Wednesday. We got tickets to see Breaking Benjamin and 3 Days Grace at the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on September 27th. DJ and PK, the question of the day is next.
Hey, bro. You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what you doing?
Well, now, it's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
Your show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
Cheap bass! Cheap bass!
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz. Woo! Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, Fancy Pants. If you've got a business, you've got me. I got you, you got me. My love will pay the rent. That's what I'm telling you right now. You got a product that you're passionate about, and you want it to be endorsed by me, PK. Now, I tried this yesterday, already got one. I want two. I want you. It's simple. All you have to do is text PK to 57500. 57500, and our sales staff, which is very good, I might add. Yeah, they good. We'll take care of the rest. You got a product. You want me to endorse it. I want to endorse it. Help you make money. You simply text PK to 57500. You got that? Do it now, because I ain't got time to mess around.
You know, the only thing that would have made that better, that was excellent work by you, PK. The only thing that would have made that better is like a Vegas slot machine sound effect. Let's see where your mind is. Hold on. Hey!
You know where their minds are.
Well, we've had Vegas showgirls in the studio.
And what did they say?
I'm not going to say it and give you that drop. I know what they said.
PK, take it off, baby.
That's what she said right there.
So many showgirls, so little time.
She figured you out right away, and she started.
Oh, yeah.
She started bringing the comedy.
Just one look was all it took. Yeah. 57500. Text PK, and you and me will have something going between us.
Yeah, the end of it, not the start. The end of it's the better part. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Coinage. You better believe it.
All right, it's time for the question of the morning. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey says losing to bad teams matters more than beating Georgia, and arguing Alabama and Ole Miss should have been in the football playoff. Is he right?
I would drug test him.
You would. Right now, Greg, here's a little cup.
Daily.
Go fill it up.
Every day.
It's clear that not losing becomes, in many ways, more important than beating the University of Georgia, which two of our teams were left out did. Nobody had that kind of quality win.
Big deal. Ole Miss lost to Kentucky, which had one friggin' win in the SEC. That was it.
Alabama lost to Vanderbilt.
And they lost to Vanderbilt. You don't go to Vanderbilt to play sports unless you're a baseball player.
That's a good point.
And Vanderbilt lost to Georgia State. So, yes, Georgia State is better than Alabama. First off, what he's complaining about, welcome to college football. The best teams, the best records have always been rewarded. Strength of schedule comes in as a tiebreaker when both teams are undefeated or both teams have one loss or both teams have two losses.
Or you're in the SEC and Big Ten.
See? And is he counting on this point that people just don't remember all the details and all the bad losses from last season? Because the SEC was awash in a staggering number of bad losses.
I don't think I think he understands that it's easily rememberable, which isn't a word, but you get the point. So
look upperable.
He's just trying to
deflect,
slant the argument. Both need to matter, losses and wins.
Right. And if they'd only had
that's
one
why
bad,
you keep record.
And they'd only had one bad loss, they would have gotten in. But they had 3 losses, and the Oklahoma loss was terrible.
That was another bad one. Yeah, not as bad as the other one, but I'll give it to you. So yeah, I mean, what the heck? What are you thinking here? That just say we want as many teams as possible, and I don't care how we get it because we're bigger and better than you. And we deserve it. Don't try to get in the weeds of the argument because you're not going to win that.
No, especially this offseason because last year just didn't look good. There were losses all over the place. Arkansas went and lost to Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma State went 0-9 in the Big 12. And the whole argument about you guys look good because you never travel, so LSU finally travels and they lose to a USC team that was incredibly mediocre. Lost to Maryland, lost to Minnesota, lost to a mediocre Michigan team, but beat LSU.
I think the thing here is the SEC won 6 in a row, and then the Big Ten's won the last 2, so all hell broke loose. How dare they? We've got to change it.
The SEC is not adapting well to this?
Yeah.
Well, the change should be go to 16. Move the bag back at first, and then Bama does probably get in because it's 16 teams.
That's what they're
you're going to have
okay,
a bunch
but
of
then
teams
Bama gets in, and then it'll be the next team that didn't get in.
And they'll be upset that somebody else didn't. They'll be upset, yeah. Why isn't LSU in? Why isn't South Carolina in? Why
you could make it 100, and they would want the 101st team
because
in.
LSU's got another horrible loss, and South Carolina's got multiple bad losses. I mean, it doesn't stop.
There's still a wash in money. I mean, just take it easy for a year or two. Most times your teams are going to be there. The stadiums are jammed. I mean, you're Saban, he's gone now. I get it. But, I mean, his big complaint is people were leaving early because we kill teams. Well, you don't play anybody in the non-conference usually.
Certainly not at home. You always run off to Atlanta for a barely neutral site.
They need to they need to stop with these individuals trying to do their own thing and get some form of uniformity. Everybody plays 9 conference games. You can play 1 AA every 4 years, or no, you can't, and blah, blah, blah. Let's keep the money in the Division I so you can schedule MAC and Sunbelt and AAC and Mountain West teams and all that stuff. It's the formula is there to fix it. We've gotten off the academics. It's not about academics. It's not about the purposes to graduate students. No, that's for those people over there, not for these people. It's not. We got Devon Vele coming on telling us he wants to be an engineer, but he's not allowed to take the courses because they're too heavy during football season. I mean, he spells it out right there. What more proof do you need? And I'm not complaining about that, nor am I criticizing that. They're there to play football.
He wasn't whining. His tone of voice was just really matter of fact.
Yeah.
You can't do that major and play this sport.
Right.
It's just how it is.
Right. It's football. That's why you're going to the school. You're not going for the engineering program and all this other stuff. That's all well and good, but you're going to play football to make yourself money now and to make the university money. That's the way the world is. It's out in the open now. I've been talking about this for decades. It's my crowning achievement. I kept saying, if you're saying they're not getting paid, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not on the inside. You're not a beat guy who sees all the dirt. Not all of the dirt, I should say. You see a lot of the dirt. And you assume what you don't see is happening because you don't see it, or else you would see it, obviously, and talk myself in circles.
But the people who are more inside than beat writers would tell you and other people the SEC isn't going to win as much now, that NIL is a factor. And that has proven to be true. That has proven to be true in the postseason. It has proven to be true in the regular season. There was a reason they were winning so much, and they want to recapture it with whatever rules they can. But there was a reason they were winning so much, and everybody knew what it was, and nobody wanted to say it out loud. But when NIL came along, multiple people
They
it's
didn't want
going
to
to
say
change
it publicly.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah, they did say it out loud, but they didn't want to. They didn't want to step.
That's what I was told.
Step in front of a camera or a microphone and announce how it is.
You don't mess with people's private lives. You don't mess with their money. And guys, I know guys in the coaching profession who told me, I'm really good friends with Coach A or B or C, and these guys are paying money. I had a story of a coach who was buddies with two different head coaches, and the one coach calls him.
So Coach A calls Coach B.
Yeah, it says, what is Coach C doing? I can't afford that much money. And he laughed. And he's good friends with both of them, but Coach B and Coach C aren't good friends. But he's
which happens all the
time. Good friends with both of those guys. Yeah, and you'd all know the names, and we laugh about it, and we just, okay, that's the way it's been. And this was years ago. So I think the SEC is going to be just fine. And so you got beat out by two big money programs. Michigan, if you're a coach and a football coach in Michigan and you're not suspended, what are you doing? Every football coach at Michigan gets suspended. That's part of the deal. It's like you're in the mob. You become a made man. You become a made coach. You got suspended. That means you're doing your job, and you won. They won the title. You got the gal over there working with you down the road. Yeah, go blue. Your coach missed half the games, and his replacement's going to be suspended this year. Go blue. I didn't see any sadness in that. We won the national championship. You don't like it? Here's what I got for you. And we're on video, so you can watch me. Hey, right here. So.
The reason that you didn't hear any sadness or embarrassment is because there was no sadness or embarrassment. Not. There was just pure joy.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo.
So be a made coach. Get yourself suspended. And Ohio State, they pay millions and have been paying millions, and they beat you. So now we want to change everything because Alabama didn't get in this year? Stop it. Get some sanity, and you're doing it at the peril of the sport because the pro game is flourishing, and if they flex their muscles and say, we want to play Saturday. We want to play Friday night.
Oh,
you're going to get buried.
Yep. And we saw it with the playoff games versus the regular season game.
Well, you see it Christmas Day now. The NBA's buried.
Yeah.
Nothing competes with that. Not even your beloved soccer.
Nothing. The NFL trounces everything.
So if somebody gets in there and gets, hey, I'm sick of you people, or you're just going to mow you over, then you better watch it. Let's make it better, but you don't have to have everything flowing your way.
Yes, they do.
Is Alabama going to suffer because they didn't make the playoff one year?
Yes, because it just means more.
Well, have it mean more. If all rising tides, if it means more over here, then it's going to mean even more to you. You don't want to bury these folks over here. That's what college football really has to be careful about. And what they're doing and make it a little private country club. I don't play country clubs, man, unless somebody invites me. I can't afford it, nor will I ever be able to afford it. All four parents are done. They're dead. We ain't getting any more money than what we have right now. And I didn't get a dime from my parents, not one friggin' penny. And I'm not complaining a bit. So I got no extra money coming. So I'm not going to play country clubs. Don't eliminate me. Don't all of a sudden close all the public courses. Don't do that. Let's make it good for everybody. And you're still going to dominate. You're never not going to dominate. Look at the geographical and the racial alignments of where folks are. They're at that part of the country, and for so many of them, it's a way out. You see why they sob when they get drafted.
And a lot of your states don't have pro teams, so you're going to get all the resources.
Yeah.
You're going to have all the resources.
Right, whatever money's available. Yeah.
I mean, South Carolina.
And it'll never be equitable. There's no such thing as fairness. Fair is a nice word, but the pure definition of it doesn't exist. I'm sure you can find some examples over here, but in sports, and so create this, what do you want? You want 12, you want 14, you want 16, and you're going to always have a committee, but that's the great thing about it too. I mean, it seemed like for 20 years after 1984 was still discussed. That's where I go with the Mark Cuban thing if they're talking about as it's good. I don't go with a sexual assault thing like he tried to draw the analogy with Kobe Bryant. That's not good. Okay, but this is nothing compared to that. And so people talking about it and all the ESPN people and all the shows and Fox and on and our show and every show under the sun is going to be talking about it. And there's always going to be some form of controversy. That's sort of good.
You can sell that, as we found out watching Stephen A. Smith. Find something to debate that isn't illegal and debate it. And sports fans will rally around you.
And I don't think you'll ever have a pure NFL model in that if you finish a certain place, you're in. Unless they really overhaul college football and make it exactly like the NFL and create divisions and conferences and work their way up, that type of thing. That'd be great if they could do it, but that just seems too cumbersome because in the NFL, how many teams? 30, 32? What do you think?
32.
Yeah.
The only thing that would look anything like that, I think, is, and I don't think the SEC has the appetite for it, but the Big Ten might. The Big Ten might have the appetite for making itself a national league and going to 24, 28, 32 teams and having divisions and having their own playoff in-house where they don't have to split the money. It's all in their conference.
Yeah, but that's not going to fly. You're not going to be crowned a national champion if you're not playing over here.
No, the thought would be that the Big Ten and the SEC champs would meet at the end, that they'd both have their own in-house playoffs. But I don't know. The Big Ten's going to go to 32 and the SEC is going to stay at 20. I don't know. That stuff's all murky and way down the line. I'll see you in 2040 if we're alive.
Oh,
if it goes there, it won't go there that fast.
I'll be dead.
No.
I've had enough.
It doesn't matter. Your longevity.
No, I will.
You're going to be here after we're all gone. You might outlive Yak.
No.
And he's got like 20, 30 years on you. I don't even know.
50 years. No, I'm 84 right now.
You're not 84.
I feel like it some mornings coming in here. So I don't see that. And just bring sanity to the thing. You're still awash in money. Coaches' salaries are going up. Athletic director salaries are going up.
College commissioner salaries are going up.
What he made when he first got the job at Utah.
It was
versus
less than six figures.
Yeah. What he ended up making. Come on.
Yep.
We're all making money here. And that's the goal. Make money. It's always the goal.
So don't wreck it. Just ride.
Improve it. Make it a little more sane, and away you go. If you want to, is 16 the way to go now?
I think 16 is what people have wanted for years. Steve Spurrier had a great line years ago when they went from 2 to 4. Do you like going to 4? I like it. Not as much as I'm going to like going to 16, but I like it.
So
and he thought it was going to be 16
is
then. 16
an agreeable number? You're smarter than I am.
Yes.
It's one of that stuff. So then do that and have 4 or 5. Have the 4 and then the best of the other 5, and they get the 5th spot. And then what's that leave?
11. That's the model we were talking about in the last segment.
Then vote 11 in.
The SEC was talking about the 5 plus 11 model.
They're going to get the majority of them always.
Yep. So the question is, do they do a concocted thing to beef up another weekend for TV and make more money?
No, I don't like that.
Or not? And apparently the Big Ten's pushed that, and the SEC has pushed the 5 plus 11.
I don't want to ruin the regular season.
And how many games are we going to expect all these teams to play and keep their best players healthy? We just keep adding games nonstop.
Yeah.
11 turned into 12. One bowl game has turned into a 4-game postseason. A handful of conference championship games, now basically 2 or 3 per league. What are we looking at now? That's going to be like 10 games in the big 4 leagues on that final week if they went with that model.
I would eliminate the conference title game.
What's the point?
And
money.
But you have the playoff right then.
Yeah. They're talking about.
Then have 2 weeks of conference tournament games. When does it stop?
I know. When the money runs out.
It's never going to run out.
Oh, well, then it's not going to stop. As we find out, because the NFL wants to go to 18 games.
Then you can start that then, make more money off the playoff, and away you go. And if your school has a big fancy booster, then away you go. Or boosters like BYU obviously has.
Right.
And then you can do that. I must have gotten some tickets through BYU. I got a thing in the email from a letter from Brian Santiago last night in my family email. And they're talking about doing it the right way, the BYU way. Well, the BYU way is now flush with cash. That's the right way. It's throw enormous amounts of money at people. That's the way. The BYU way has expanded right before our eyes.
If you don't have enormous amounts of money, you aren't going to win a lot.
And fine, throw it at them.
Yeah.
They're within the rules. Nobody argues that they're cheating. They're doing what's permissible. The BYU way is to win not at all costs, but next to all costs, which is just as good as all costs.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Matt Murschel, UCF Knights, Spring Football Tour at 8:30. Andy Bailey on the NBA Draft at 9 o'clock. Coming up at the top of the hour, Lauri Markkanen. What do you think he is worth when Danny Ainge picks up the phone? We'll get to that at 8 o'clock right here on The Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
Last year was not fun. The games are pretty fun to go to, but I don't know if fun is good enough for Jazz fans. The way you're talking about I'll go to a minor league baseball game, or, I'm in town, I'll go to a White Sox game because there's a novelty to it.
Well, they've made the experience better, which helps.
Absolutely. No, the experience is good. The problem is Jazz fans want more than that. You don't have to win, but you have to have something that's fun to root for, and I just don't know if there was anything that was fun to root for with the Jazz last year.
I mean, even if they hit pause on their season ticket spend, they'll be back. This is a basketball town. You want to talk about they had the worst record in the league this year, worst record in franchise history, whatever. They will never have the worst attendance in the league. People are just disappointed. They're going to trudge on. They get it. Don't have to love it. Don't have to have fun. But the Jazz fan base will endure. They understand.
Of course, yeah, they're not going anywhere.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
The artists of the day today are Breaking Benjamin and 3 Days Grace. We're giving away tickets to see Breaking Benjamin and 3 Days Grace. We'll do that coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Artists of the Day brought to you by Live Nation. For all the live concerts and events in 2025, check out livenation.com. All right, we pause on the NBA and college football talk, which we will get back to very quickly in the next hour with NBA at the top of the hour and college football at 8:30. And we pause, so this gives you an opportunity, PK. We ought to have that wheels sound effect thing that Scott and Hans use. Soccer, hockey, golf. What would you like to talk?
I want to vent about golf.
Vent away.
I got two things. Our prediction stuff has now grown stale. I'm bored with it.
Oh, because I won?
No, because he's going to take McIlroy or he's going to take Scheffler, then you're going to take McIlroy. I didn't do it last time. I
didn't do it at the Masters, and you took Scheffler.
I know. It's boring. What we need to do now
is X out three guys.
No, you can't take the same guys every time.
Oh, I like it.
If you take McIlroy in the Masters,
I like that a lot.
Can't take him again.
That's it. It's like the elimination thing.
Yeah.
You can't pick the same thing.
Right.
Oh, that's an awesome. I'm totally in favor of that.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to change the rules mid-year. Let's change the rules mid-year.
It gets
and
boring.
I say that I've already used Scheffler.
I picked Fitzpatrick. I picked Tiger when he was over the hill. Mm-hmm. That's way more fun. What fun do we get among us?
I actually had a good time picking Justin Rose in the Masters, even though he didn't win. He was in contention. It made it fun.
Right.
It made it fun.
But Scheffler and McIlroy?
Right, but I really thought Scheffler was going to win. I didn't want to pass on him.
I know. I'm not saying that you were wrong to do it. I said it's just boring.
It does get boring. You're right.
Yeah.
And also, it's when golf is this predictable, it doesn't give us a chance to have any debate because Bob was right to pick Rory, and then I was right to pick Scheffler. Like, you haven't had a chance to pick a winner yet. The winner has been off the board before your first pick.
Well, we could mix around the picks, but I want to go last. It's more fun that way. I know darn well I was flying to Hawaii on U.S. Open Day a few years ago, and you two were passionately rooting against Matthew Fitzpatrick. You don't have to tell me, admit it. I know darn well you both were.
So I can't remember that exact tournament, but I will tell you this.
It was the U.S. Open.
I will tell you this. For that tournament, I root against your guys incessantly. It gives me a rooting interest.
Right.
I'm all about I know who you picked, I know who Bob picks, and I'm rooting against those 6 guys because I don't want to listen to you. That's the best. Well, I don't know. The Tiger pick was pretty good, though.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 best picks. I mean, there have been other winners.
That's picking McIlroy. It's like going to the track, and it's a 1-to-1 favorite.
Okay, well, you already won this argument. Okay. So what else you got?
McIlroy, grow up. Stop just talking when you win. You are a figure in the sport. We covered for decades Jerry Sloan.
Yep.
Win or lose, his butt is out there pushing it because that's the job. Your job is to push it. You're a niche sport. And
okay,
so you don't speak at the PGA because you didn't play well?
That's
weak.
That is completely weak. I'm 100% on board. And what you said earlier about football stomps everything, there's a reason golf has arranged the calendar the way it has. It's a no-brainer. But even football sells it all the time. Andy Reid has to talk in the offseason. Mahomes has to talk in the offseason. All the coaches, the quarterbacks, the GMs, the NFL is always out there selling it. And I look at other sports and people think they've arrived and they don't want to talk anymore. Talking is not that difficult, especially the stuff you get to talk about.
And when you speak after a loss, you gain so much more respect.
Tons. McIlroy actually breaks the rule, and I guess there's exceptions to every rule, so he's the one. The people who know how to deal with defeat and who speak well after defeat are the people I expect to win, to bounce back and win. They're going to handle it. They're going to adjust. So. And the way I told you yesterday, I loved and see, McIlroy's the exception to this, but SGA sitting on the bench when they were getting drilled in Game 3 and he's mic'd up and he's laying out exactly what's going wrong. I'm thinking, okay, your odds of fixing what are going wrong are much higher than someone who throws a temper tantrum and walks away. And he was just laying it out for a teammate.
Say what you want about Donovan Mitchell, but he's accountable. Win or lose.
No, he routinely talks. Yeah.
Yes, and he has suffered some bitter losses.
Yeah, just had another one.
Yeah.
But he talked.
And he's frustrated, and he uses profanity. Probably not the best idea, but it's in the moment. Or the next day is not exactly in the moment, but the loss still impacts him, and he speaks.
Yeah,
he wants to be the man. He's close to being the man. I just don't think he is the man.
Well,
but
it's a pretty
he does
bar.
act like he's the man.
Yeah.
He knows I got to talk. If I want to be the man, I got to accept all the glory, or not all the criticism, because that's not the way it is.
No,
but you have to speak, and he understands that, and he doesn't go hide over there in the training room.
And the best leaders and the best players understand that. You know, in the local college football season, Brian Johnson got that. John Beck definitely got that.
Yeah, get out there.
They had their disappointments, their interceptions, their injuries, their lost seasons and all that stuff, and they just get back out in front and go.
Beck spoke, because I covered him the whole time as a beat writer, he spoke every single game except at Boston College when they lost in overtime, whatever, double, triple, whatever it was, and he had some injury issues that plagued him the rest of the season.
And he's in the training room.
And they said that he was not going to come out, and there was some groans there, and Jeff Reynolds comes up to me. He says, "Hey, you know this guy has
He
comments."
always talks.
And I said,
and that's why
you're exactly right.
And that's
man.
why when you have that track record, then when you need the break, you should be given the break.
Right.
The same way like Joe Ingles did miss shows. But man, if you only miss like 3 shows in 8 years or whatever it was, well, like when you have to miss, you miss.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you can't bet
That's how you build trust. And when Jeff Reynolds was sports information director, he had enormous trust with the media, certainly with me, because he was always straight with me. And he looked at me like, I'm not making this up, man. We've got a history together. So I need you to help us out here. Okay, we're good.
So Rory should be out in front, and he should be selling the sport because he has a chance for his generation. And we all remember Tiger, obviously. So he's not Tiger, but when you think of like a golf generation, for the time that Rory was on top, Rory was the guy. I mean, look at how the needle moved for the ratings in the Masters, watching him. Guy. Yeah. And for his decade of guys, he's the guy.
Yeah, so don't just talk when you win. And because it's golf, nobody wins all the time. You lose way more, or you don't, not necessarily lose, but you don't win. You play in hundreds of tournaments, and if you got a 50% win rate, oh my gosh.
Well,
nobody has that.
I'd have to look at how many major starts Tiger has, but 4 a year for 20 years would be 80, and he won 15 times, and he's a legend.
Right.
So 65 times he didn't.
Of course.
If that 80 number is right, and if it's not, just change the math a little bit, whether it's 60, 70, 80, 90,
I remember
100.
sitting in a locker room once at the sports arena. This is going back years ago. And Larry Bird, the Celtics came in. Of course, it was sold out, blah, blah. And I'm standing there. And Bird's sitting at his old locker, cinder block thing, just sitting there. And he says, well, I got, especially on the road, I got nowhere to go. So I do 10, 15 minutes, and then I'm done. And that's it. Nothing changes in my life. I don't have anywhere to go. So I do my 15 minutes. People want to hear what I have to say. I only come to the Clippers once a year because we ain't going to be playing the Clippers in the playoffs. Right? And so, I remember he was just sitting there, and I'm just listening. There's a group, a semicircle around. He's just saying that, and like, yeah, just do it. And that's the way Jerry Sloan he approached it from two angles. Just freaking do the thing, and I got to sell the league. And then way to go.
He nodded out the tunnel, and he said, I remember walking out there, and there weren't 4,000 people in the stands. I don't take any of this for granted. And he made money off the people who came before him. The people now are making money off Jerry. And there's somebody out there in 20 years who's going to be making money off the people now.
Eventually, Yak will be making money off of us.
There it is, Yak. Yak, hit the sound effect. Let's go. You got it. Come on, Yak.
You talking about the slot machine?
Yeah.
I already have moved that out of the system already.
What?
He liked that.
I did.
Because he's about money. Of course he did.
Don't mess with people's money, PK.
I never
Who said that?
Well,
Paycheck
mother.
is why I live in Utah.
You, earlier this morning.
I know. I got it from
You
my
saved
mother.
the school $600,000?
600,000.
Wow.
What's that going to get you?
600 grand. Wow.
That ain't
no.
much.
No, you're reading that wrong.
That's called like July in my life.
$600,000 decision. That's an excellent way to go, dude.
Yeah,
All right.
you.
I don't even remember who it was. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. When we come back, Lauri Markkanen. Jazz are going to be able to trade him this summer. What might he be worth to one of the other 29 NBA teams? We will get to that next. Stay with us.
We can be heroes just for one day. Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at KSLSports.com/contest. And listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week. And it's sponsored by Hercules, First Federal Credit Union, and Beehive Meals.
DJ and PK, the countdown is on. Less than a month now to the NBA draft.
I'm excited for it.
That could shake some trades loose. And Markkanen coming up on the after that, we'll hit the 1 year anniversary of Markkanen signing his extension, and then they'll be able to trade him. What might the Jazz be able to get if they trade Lauri Markkanen?
A-LOT.
Yeah, there it is.
I was thinking about this. I've been thinking about it for a couple days now. He's clearly available for the right price. And you can argue everybody is. But some are more realistic. Steph Curry's not being traded, right? So you have to take into some realism. And I can make an argument that he's the best player legitimately available.
Is Giannis available?
I don't know that he is.
I would put that out there. But I get your point. There aren't going to be many pieces as valuable as him. He's in his prime. He's tall, he's long, he can shoot the ball really well.
Yeah.
That seems to be the player that everybody wants.
See, Giannis is going to be too much. So that's why I get the point. Giannis is better than Markkanen. I'm not arguing that. But the cost for Giannis is going to be so outrageous that I think that it's going to cause a lot of people to say, nah, it's not worth it. Whereas Markkanen, the cost won't be as outrageous. And because of that and his skill level and his age, I think he can be argued the best player legitimately available. I realize Giannis is I would be open to a trade. But what are you going to get for him that's going to make the Bucks do it right now?
Looking at you, San Antonio. How about that number 2 pick?
See, I think, though, that the Bucks would want more than that, whereas the Jazz wouldn't. You see, that's where I'm saying that Markkanen becomes maybe the best, most tradable. If I'm Milwaukee, do I want to really plunge that deep into a rebuild?
Want? No.
No, well, the Jazz did. They wanted to.
Or they felt like they had to, but I get your point.
But they didn't have to when they did it.
I don't think they did.
They chose to do it. That's inarguable. They chose to do it.
They did.
You had 2 years where you could have potentially convinced Mitchell that this is the place.
The Milwaukee
to quote
thing,
the other guy.
They could move him, and they could also go the Portland scenario where everybody is like, well, what Portland needs to do is move Lillard, but Portland just really didn't want to.
Yeah, but
Lillard didn't want to.
Lillard was way older.
And it sat for a year or two.
Okay, so
and then they finally did it, right? But there were people saying 2 years before that, well, they're going to have to do this. They're painted into a corner.
And I don't think the Bucks are in that situation yet.
Ooh. I think they're where Portland was a couple years before Portland traded Lillard. And the question is, will they decide to do it? Because the Jazz could have let it ride for a year or two. But Jazz management, ownership, all the executives, right, decided, hey, we're going to have less trade value in a year or two. And is it really going to work in the next year or two? Let's just do it now. Man, rip the Band-Aid off. Do it now.
Yeah, okay, but you're comparing Mitchell and Gobert to Giannis.
Everybody's best player is the best player to them.
You trade Giannis. The second you entertain the idea he has less value, you're not. There's no way you're going to get equal value.
You're not.
So you're never. They're in a different situation.
But that's to your point that because they're not going to get equal value, they're going to demand a lot.
Yeah,
and then
then you go to Dallas.
So is it worth it for an NBA team to say, okay, Giannis, we got to pick a number. Let's say Giannis is 20% better than Lauri. I don't know, whatever number. Is it worth that extra 20%, all the stuff we're going to have to pay to make that trade?
You're going to trade Giannis for Dylan Harper?
They're going to want more. We'll see what they settle for.
That's right, but the Spurs are going to give more.
Right.
Whereas the Jazz, yes, you're going to trade Markkanen for Dylan Harper. Yes. Yes, we are. So that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Legitimately trade value.
Not the best player, but he could be the best value trade.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
There it is. I'm glad we got to it. Or I got to it.
Maybe I didn't explain it as good.
But a best trade value. Yeah.
Yeah, I use the word legitimate, but value is probably a better word. I get it. Yeah.
You're going to have to overpay to get Giannis. And Giannis is better.
Yeah,
but will it really be worth it?
Yeah, because you give so much stuff up.
Then you have a championship team.
Yeah,
you
kind of it's kind of a wash there. Whereas the Jazz,
and if that
give us a number 2 pick.
Ainge, by not talking, we don't really know what he thinks, right? Maybe he could talk and not.
He's grieving right now. His dog died.
Oh yeah, that's always hard. Losing
it's awful.
Losing a family pet is hard.
Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, he put it on social media. I feel for the guy.
Everybody who's lost a favorite pet is now.
Pets, on and on. Yeah, one guy told me that he knew of a guy lost his dog, and he immediately got another dog, the same breed, and gave him the same name. So I felt like Didn't happen.
So it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Nope, it's right there.
Yeah. King of Queens did an episode on that where Doug, what was her name? His wife's name. She goes, Doug, you're 30 years old and you're playing with your childhood dog. That doesn't work that way. Your parents never told you the dog died.
Carrie was her name.
I was going to say Karen, but I knew that wasn't
Played by Leah Remini.
Yeah. Carrie's dog. Don't you see what's happened here?
No, and I don't want to.
Yeah. So I think that you would jump at that. Maybe I'm off base. I don't think the Bucks would jump at Dylan Harper. Whereas the Jazz, absolutely.
Tony says nothing good comes from a trade with Lauri in it unless it's the number 1 pick. That won't happen, so no go.
I disagree.
Tony, not only do you disagree, and I disagree, I think Yak disagrees, and I'm really sure they disagree in the Jazz front office.
Right. Because marketing, he's making $40-some million, so he's getting paid all sorts of money. But basically, basketball life is just being wasted here. Whereas Dylan Harper wouldn't. And if you got to keep the 5th pick, and if you had 2 top 5ers, oh my goodness gracious.
Now you got to hit on them.
That would be the best thing that happened to this franchise since the statues.
If you hit on them.
I think they will hit on them.
Then that would be awesome. That would be awesome.
I'm confident
if
they have
hit on
2
top 5 picks, that would really jumpstart the. And the best thing is, it's not that the team would be awesome right away. I wouldn't expect that.
No.
If it was that, then that's just a bonus.
No,
but it's like now, once you have the young guys, you don't have to sit anybody. Just run everybody out there. You're probably going to lose a lot because young guys usually lose a lot. And if they don't, then it's awesome, and they're going to be awesome.
Yeah,
but you could just go for it. And I don't need to see, 50 wins next season, but it'd be awesome to see them trying to win.
Oh, play to win?
Yeah, just play to win.
Yeah.
And I know it's young guys, and RSLs, we were just talking about how ice cold, not high school, ice cold they are. Well, they're playing 18, 20, and 21-year-old guys. So, yeah, the 25 and 30-year-olds are beating the snot out of them.
Yeah, in the NBA and really in sports, especially in the NBA now, you have young and you have really young.
Right.
The Jazz are really young.
Really young.
Young is 22, 23, 24.
And maybe if you're out there with 22, 25, 26-year-old, you can do some winning in Oklahoma City if you hit.
And I almost think, and I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there, that Markkanen is too valuable not to trade, which sounds crazy to say. It's like an oxymoron. But I think the league looks upon him with high value, especially if you slot him in as your second or even third option. If he went to San Antonio and you had Big Vic, you had Castle, you had Fox, you have Markkanen, those 4, and if Chris Paul wants to come back and just be a leader and be a passer, that team is on to something.
He probably won't do the 25 points a game he did in his All-Star season because he won't get as many
it's
catches.
About winning. It ain't about points.
Exactly. And can he be efficient?
Of course he can.
He wasn't last year, but I'm just going to write that off to a bad year. The 2 previous years, if he can recapture any of that, then you're on to something.
I believe he can.
Last year was, I think, a bad year because it was a wasted year, and he knew it all year long. He knew it.
Hard to be mentally in gear.
Yeah. When you know, if I play well and we start to win, I'm going to get pulled.
Yeah.
And if we do win, then I'm not playing the next game. It's a weird cycle to be caught in. And I think it impacted how efficient he was.
And I wouldn't want to be
this case
caught
wasn't.
into it 2 years in a row if I were him.
Nope.
So I would want out and go along that direction. I think that he is a massive piece towards getting this thing jump-started by a couple of levels. I would press hard for all 3 teams ahead of me because I don't believe that the Mavericks would be interested in any form of a trade that involves Cooper Flag.
I agree with that, but they have to be called, and that has to be explored anyway. And just like you got two tracks here. You know, if you go with Markkanen, then when you get Kyrie back, you know, you can go for it.
No.
I wouldn't do it if I were the Mavericks, but did you think they were going to trade Luka Doncic in that deal? You got to call him. You got to let people trip over
not
themselves.
in that deal, but trade a guy who's not serious about his conditioning and is still young, where your what's the word I'm looking for in terms of being able to eat and still not gain weight metabolically.
Yeah.
Metabolism.
No,
I
get your point.
He's only going to get fatter unless he gets serious.
Trading Luka Doncic wasn't outrageous. It could be defended, and there's some logic to it. Trading it for what they got is indefensible.
I'll buy that. At the same time, you got to let it play out. Because if you can't always judge one move based solely on one move.
True story.
Basketball is a puzzle that has to be put together.
The pieces of the puzzle have to fit.
Yeah, and so if they can get now, they're expecting Davis not to get hurt is stupid, but having Irving go down is a massive blow.
They didn't know Kyrie was going to blow his knee out.
Right. You know, if they can come back in 2 years and you got Irving is still good, Davis is still good, Flag. Maybe you got something. They got some decent role players, so we'll have to see.
There could be a lot of guys on the move. There's there's a whole line of logic out there. Whether Dallas will sign off on it or not is another thought. But they should trade AD. They should trade AD to somebody who's in a win now mood and try to get young players. Young players you like and you value.
His value is decreasing.
I agree. All the more reason to move him right now.
Oh, well, that was all the more reason not to acquire him.
I agree with that, too. But now you have, so.
I don't know who would be jumping to get him. If you got him on 50 cents, I would say that. But that's for their issues. I'm more concerned about the Jazz. And the Jazz, they really can jumpstart it. Right now, if they just kept the 5th and the 21st, I would be disappointed.
Something's got to happen.
Even if they get two really good players, I would still be disappointed in the short term.
I think I'm not the expert on collective bargaining, but I don't think they can trade him draft night. So
I don't care.
Right. But whoever can draft, and then you can pull the trade off, on whatever date he becomes eligible for a trade.
Right. I get that.
Yeah.
I'm not
so if there's a high draft pick
going into the I'm talking about going into the season.
Summer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Over the course of the summer, not necessarily on draft night.
Right. Yeah. Because you see who you got and all that type of stuff. And then the stories can get out whenever he's available to be traded. That stuff gets out anyway.
It usually does.
And so you can't, some archaic rule says you can't do it till whatever date. I get all that. I don't pay attention to all that. I'm not
Doesn't really matter. There's no game in July or August anyway.
Yeah, those rules don't really work for me. But I mean, they're out there, and I'm not.
I like your answer. A space LOT. That's what they can get for Markkanen. Now, do they want that in a young player? Do they want that in a draft pick? Who would obviously be very young. When I say young player, I was talking more about your early 20s.
I got it. That's it. I would include some other assets too. If you can do it, if the other team, whether it's San Antonio, Philadelphia, or maybe even Charlotte, obviously the second pick I'd give more, the third pick I'd give a little less, the fourth pick I'd give a little less than that. I would try, especially 2 or 3, and I keep 5.
You should repeat what you said yesterday because people, unfortunately, do not hear every segment of every show. But there are a couple things that you think about where the Jazz are leaning or not leaning in the draft.
Yeah, I don't think they're as high on Bailey as some folks are, and I think they're high on the Oklahoma point guard.
And I was reading a review of the Combine that Bailey measured like 2.5, 3 inches shorter.
6'7".
He's 6'7", 6'7.5", something like that.
He doesn't have an afro.
He's not 6'10".
No.
So, yeah. On the list of things, and no one thing is the thing that cools them, but lots of factors come together.
6'7"
right?
versus 6'10" is a big deal.
That's a big deal. DJ PK, Matt Murschel, UCF Knights beat and college football writer for the Orlando Sentinel, joins us next. The spring football tour. Can Scott Frost recapture the magic? Stay with us.
Accessing.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
Joining us now, Ian Fitzsimmons.
Hans, Crazy Wings, George's. Did you hit it?
I didn't get to hit it, man. We ended up at the Brazos Grill. I got their chicken fried steak, but they did have these thing called the armadillo balls at the Brazos River that was really good, but it's not the Crazy Wing.
Can you go ahead and just lift Hans saying they did have these things called armadillo balls, which were really good?
I feel like Chevy Chase in the movie Funny Farm.
You polish off that plate and you break the record.
Stand back, everybody. The record falls tonight.
Now, there's a man who knows when he's got something good in his mouth.
On that mic drop, bam, done.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're joined now by Matt Murschel, UCF Knights beat writer and college football writer for the Orlando Sentinel. Orlando hosting the Big 12 meetings. Everybody, coaches, ADs, the whole Big 12 world is descending on Orlando. Matt, with all this going on, thanks for taking a few minutes out to talk with us. We appreciate it.
No problem. How are you guys doing this morning?
Good. Now, usually we do the spring football tour for multiple reasons. One, college football is a big deal here. Two, we're not talking about the Jazz in the NBA playoffs, right? So we have time to do a little deep dive here, and we're going to spend a lot of time here, transfer portal, who's coming, who's going, and all that. But let's start with a coach, because this is really intriguing. We've been doing this for a long time. We're old guys. We can give you a list of coaches that have gone back to a school where they had success, and they rarely come anywhere near that. And we had to do that because Utah State went back to Gary Anderson, who had 4 good years, built something, won the last WAC title, and then moved on to Wisconsin, Oregon State. When he came back, it didn't work. It fell flat right out of the gate. It just did not work. So what's the logic on bringing Scott Frost back? Is he that good a coach? Did he catch lightning in a bottle last time? Can he catch lightning in a bottle again? Is everybody on board with this?
Yeah, I think there's a good portion of people who are on board on this. I mean, I know the administration is fully behind, bringing Scott back. It was an interesting move for sure, as you mentioned. It's a hit or miss type mentality when it comes to bringing a coach back to a second time. And when Scott was here the first time, he did have that success. He took a winless team in 2015, and next year they won 6 games, and then the year after that they went undefeated and beat Auburn, in the Peach Bowl. So this mentality was, okay, maybe we can bring him back. Maybe, things will have that same sort of success. Scott has grown a lot over the last 8 years. I talked with him several times over the spring. This is something that, there was no other job out there that he really wanted to go for. He was working as a consultant with the LA Rams. He was happy doing that job. He wasn't really even thinking about getting back into coaching at the college level. But, when the UCF job opened up, it became intriguing, and he decided this was the best chance I'm going to have. I'm going to go back, because he did like his experience at UCF. So, Terry Mahajer, the athletic director, sat down and met with him several times and talked about, do you think you can do this? Come back. What do you think? And as the process went along, both sides just realized this seemed like it was going to be a good fit. And so that's why Scott comes back. And now remains to be seen how this transition is going to work. It's like I mentioned, it's been 8 years. A lot has changed in the college landscape, NIL, transfer portal. Now we're getting into rev share. So it's going to be a challenge for him. And he's admitted that. It's been a whirlwind experience already to try to get back to it. Will he have success this year? I'm not sure. But, if something pays off in the next couple of years, I think then, the goodwill that he's gained from the fan base and from the boosters and donors, I think this move could end up paying off.
I'm sure you were in the audience at the time. I listened to what was posted on their website. It sounded like it was a post-spring game analysis, and you guys were asking him, and he wouldn't even name one player in the time that I listened to him. So, what about the quarterbacks? What about the running back? Yeah. And so the thing that caught my eye, besides refusing to name it, because I'm trying to get some information, right? So I'm prepared for the interview. And he didn't name one guy. So, but I'm looking at other stuff to get there. And he said that no quarterback, nothing emerged from the 4 quarterbacks, which was a quote. He was willing to talk about team speed. He thought that was pretty good. So as I look at these quarterbacks, at least 3 with Jackson and Brown and Fancher, I think may have gotten injured in that game. The best I could find is Taven Jackson has had 6 starts for those 2 years at Indiana. I think he had 4 and then 2. And I'm thinking, just from a distance, that he would be the leader as far as who is the starting quarterback to begin the season. What do you see and think?
Yeah, I think he's definitely the front runner going into the fall camp as the possible start of this season. I think everyone would agree on that fact. I think, and Scott and all the coaches really did this, I thought, throughout the spring, is they were very careful about not wanting to promote individual players so much so as but promoting positions and promoting, groups of guys. I think that was a very smart, ploy in his mind, thinking that with the spring transfer portal, you don't want to put too many guys out there. Maybe that they would, all of a sudden, get other schools interested in your quarterbacks or interested in some of your other players. I think that was one of the reasons. I think another reason is, Scott has said many times he's trying to develop that team atmosphere. And he was really concerned that if they started to put people out front, that maybe people would start to feel like, okay, well, that I don't have a chance, or I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be able to earn a spot, or this is what's going to happen. And so he was very careful of that. So I think in the quarterback room especially, I think Tavon, like I mentioned, is definitely the front runner. But I think Ja'Cory Brown, a guy who was here last year, who had a limited role as a backup, he started, I think, one game. He's going to have an opportunity. I think if he looked decent in spring, if he can kind of maybe push Taven to try to get a chance to go for that starting role. I think Cam Fancher, who got banged up in the last open practice, hurt his hand. I think he'll be fine going in. He's got a lot of experience. He started a lot of games. But he didn't look very strong in spring, but he still believes that he's got a chance to go after it. So those 3 guys really, in my mind, are going to be the make that run in the quarterback. I think all 3 fit well into what they want to do offensively. This is going to be an offense that's going to be similar to what he did, what Scott ran in 2016 and 2017. But, again, there's going to be some aspects of it they're going to have to implement as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how these quarterbacks kind of work out. We got a chance to talk to all 4 of them, and it was still an interesting move.
Quarterback's got to have somebody to throw the ball to. Kobe Hudson and Jacoby Jones were the top 2 wide receivers statistically last year, and they're both off to the NFL. Of course, the transfer portal, Marcus Burke comes in from Florida. I guess they held 3 guys out of the spring stuff you were allowed to watch, and another guy got hurt, Day Farmer, who used to be at West Virginia. Mm-hmm. Can you begin to sort out the wide receivers any better than you can sort out the quarterbacks?
No, actually, that's funny. It seems to be a theme throughout. The wide receiver group is probably the one that has the most interested in watching outside of quarterbacks because, again, there are no really established players. They're younger guys who got a lot of speed, got a lot of athleticism, didn't have a chance to play. They brought in some guys from the transfer portal. Mentioned DJ Black, Marcus Burke, Dwayne Thomas was another guy they brought in. They brought in some guys that they felt like would help them out. And, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, but no one's really kind of separated themselves at this point of being who's going to be the main target. So, it's a position I think it's going to be fun to watch where guys kind of, end up, kind of shuffling themselves in, especially going into fall camp. They are a very fast group, probably some of the fastest players on the team, and that's good news for whoever's going to be quarterback because they're going to need to have an advantage to go out there and have these guys make plays. And so, to me, I think it's the one guy. I've said this basically on every position group. It's there's a lot of unknowns, but there's a lot of things that make these players, I think, feel like they've got equal opportunities to try to get a shot to get a starting spot because there isn't that maybe definitive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 setup when it comes to the roster.
One of the things about the Big 12 last year, as we had both BYU and Utah into it, so we have transitioned away from the Pac-12, obviously, that I thought it was the year of the running back. The running back was very dominant, and you were covering one last year with R.J. Harvey. I believe he got drafted, second round Broncos, something like that. So you look at their running backs. You got Stacey Gage. I think he's back. You never know if it's transfer portal because you got to stay on it every day. But I'm intrigued by this Jaden Nixon. Over 900 yards at Western Michigan. His first couple years was at Oklahoma State. Not to say that they're going to be another Harvey, but it looks like they may have some talent there.
Yeah, I think that's another position. Again, young, athletic. They've had some veterans going in. Miles Montgomery was a backup last year to R.J. Harvey. When you have a guy who rushes for over 1,500 yards, Miles didn't get a lot of carries, but it was kind of time came into spot, Harvey to kind of give him a little breather here and there. I think he's going to be huge. I think Jaden comes in, a lot of speed, a lot of, he can really mix things up. I think, those two guys, Miles and Jaden, are probably going to be the 1-2 punch, going out the running back position. I think, Stacey Gage, as you mentioned, is a young guy who's been on the roster but hasn't really had a chance to kind of go out and perform. He's going to get an opportunity. They've got a couple of younger guys, and Taven Swint coming in, and they feel like he can come in and make some moves as a freshman. So this is a group right now that I think is going to be very interesting. It's going to be different. I'm not a big believer that they're going to rely on one guy to carry the load of the carries of the running back group. I think what's going to happen is this is going to be a running back by committee type approach. I think you're going to have 2 or 3 guys definitely rotating in and out, getting equal numbers of carries. That's kind of what Scott Frost did in the past. He only had one 1,000-yard rusher and coaching both at UCF and at Nebraska. So he's not a guy that's going to, put a load on one guy. I think he's going to have a lot of different athletes out there to try to see what they can do, whether it's, running, catching the ball, blocking, whatever they need. So I think all 3 of those guys, Miles, Jaden, and Stacey, are going to have great opportunities to pull forward and make some plays and kind of make this offense exciting.
We're joined right now by Matt Murschel, UCF Knights beat and college football writer for the Orlando Sentinel. Defensively, the top 7 tacklers all had eligibility. Did they get through the transfer portal unscathed there? And does the new coaching staff value these guys, or do they want a new set of guys? How much turnovers are going to be there?
No, I think defensively, this team is going to find itself. That's where they're really going to, I think, stand out. I mean, I think this is a group that has an opportunity. They've got some guys who come back who've been around there. Nigel Kelly was one on the defensive end. Malachi Lawrence is another guy that they really liked. John Walker was hurt last year, but he's a standout. They think he's going to be there. I think defensively, this is a group it's really going to have their opportunities to be the best part of this team, especially early on as the offense tries to build up and tries to do what it needs to do. I think that's what it's going to fall into. So they've got pieces. They did get a couple guys that left, but honestly, they brought in a lot of talent. Sincere Edwards is a defensive lineman they brought in from Pittsburgh. He's a local kid. He had a really great start at Pittsburgh, but he wanted to come home and be closer to home. They brought in a guy in Horace Lockett Jr. He's going to be nose tackle. He's a guy that, the coaching staff been really high on. I feel like he could step right in that nose tackle position. So they feel like defensive line is going to be solid. The linebacker group has been rebuilt from scratch. I mean, they really didn't have anyone coming back at all. So, they had to bring in a bunch of transfers on that front. They brought in guys with experience they feel like can step in and be, immediate contributors. And the secondary, they just kept adding pieces and depth and kind of mixing in with some younger players. So they feel like this defense is really going to be the key to what they're going to end up doing this next year.
Are they going to have media availability for these Big 12 meetings in Orlando?
Yeah, they are. We're going to have some limited media availability. I know we're getting some coaches, some basketball coaches are today. Football is going to be tomorrow. They're going to try to have, like we're talking to Scott Frost tomorrow, separate from everything else. I talked a little bit to Scott last night. He was at a function here in Orlando and talked about how, I think he said they brought in 65 newcomers. And yesterday was the first day they actually sat down and really had a chance to, meet as a full team, and so it's definitely been a process for him. And he mentioned that, just getting everyone together. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, the big thing, obviously, with the playoff and who gets what, is that something you're going to pursue in terms of line questioning?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, this is the biggest questions going into this week were the stuff that's going on everywhere. It's just the House settlement, what's going on with that, what's going to happen to rev share, how are schools going to be able to handle that? Then you look at the college football playoff, is it going to be 16 teams? We get Brett Yormark on Friday. That's one of the questions is what is your thinking about behind this? I mean, what do you think about what Greg Sankey said the other day? Kind of taking a shot at the Big 12 and the ACC, for talking about doing what's best for the game. I mean, what are those kind of question marks? Because it seems to me right now that no one's on the same page, and it's going to be interesting to see how they can get everyone together. I think it's mid-June when they're supposed to meet again for the playoffs. How are they going to be able to get on the same page? What does the Big 12 believe is what they need to do, and then also what do the other conferences need to do as well?
It seems to me that philosophically, the Big Ten and the SEC, I'm trying to figure out what the SEC's endgame is, other than as many playoff berths and as much money as possible, please. Dan, thank you. And not so much on the please. But it does sound like the SEC might be saying, hey, let's have the 5 conference champs and 11 at-large teams. And the Big Ten has floated this, 4 automatic bids for the Big Ten and the SEC, 2 each for the ACC and Big 12, which looks like that's just set up to create more TV product on the championship weekend. So philosophically, do you want to have a regular season to set up championship weekend, to set up a 16-team tournament, or is that too much and it really devalues the regular season? I'd be interested to hear what the league thinks about that and what the commissioner and the ADs think about that when I say the league. And I wonder if there's anybody talking and whispering about that, or if that's just a bunch of unknowns right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone, everything that I've heard and spoken with some people, that everything is on the table right now. I think everyone wants to know exactly what, you've got the SEC, which you mentioned, is leaning now more towards, 1 minute was the 4-2-2, the 4-4-2-2-1 model, where they get 4 automatic bids from the SEC and the Big Ten. Well, now all of a sudden it's looking more like maybe the 5, where you can have the, the 5 conference champions, and then you can go with, the 11 at large. That seems to be something people are favoring now. So where are they at on all this? I mean, that's the problem is some people want this, some people want that, and what works best for it. The SEC is talking about maybe doing playing games, if they do the 4-4-2-2-1. I mean, and all of a sudden you add more games. There's a possibility, legitimately, guys, that there's a team that could play 18 games if we go down that road. And I mean, is that something that college athletics wants to get to? They really want to be in that spot. And if that's the case, I mean, if you're the SEC, I agree with what Greg said the other day about, listen, we don't necessarily need to fight hard. I mean, we're going to get teams in no matter what. It's just how many teams they want to get in and how they want to do it. I mean, everyone else is just saying, listen, we want equal opportunities. If I'm the Big 12, if I'm the ACC, I'm not just going to give up things. I'm just not going to kowtow to the SEC and to the Big Ten. I'm going to make sure I get as much as I can out of this opportunity, whether it's more spots, automatic spots, whether it's a bigger piece of the pie, whatever it needs to be done, even guarantees to the future of college athletics. I think that's something that you have to fight for. And I think that's something that, I want to ask, Brett about is just, how hard, is this fight. You have to make sure that, if you talk about, what's best for college, that's something you have to think about.
I just want when Yormark was battling with the Pac-12, he and Kliakov, the commissioner, used to have one-liners trying to one-up each other, and now I want Yormark to go at Sankey. He's got the quips, so that's all I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, he might, and I mean, I could see that happening. I mean, maybe something like that happens, but I think the thing is fans don't understand that as much, and I mean, they think it's funny and all and everything, but I think at some point everyone's got to get on the same page. I mean, this isn't going to work if everyone's pulling in every other direction, and I mean that's the hard thing. I mean, I think. Is the SEC willing to give a little bit? Is the Big Ten willing to give a little bit to make this work? Maybe, but it has to be presented. I mean, everybody has to be unified on this. And I just think right now it's just a bunch of people, making a bunch of moves and pulling different directions. And I just think that's not going to be good for what they're trying to get accomplished.
Matt, we appreciate the time. It is a busy week for you. Thanks for giving us a few minutes.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Matt Murschel, UCF Knights beat and college football writer for the Orlando Sentinel, with the Big 12 ADs and coaches descending on the city for the Big 12 meetings. All right, DJ PK, when we come back, it's a Win Tickets Wednesday. We're giving away concert tickets to see Breaking Benjamin and 3 Days Grace at the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater, September 27th, and we'll do that right after the break. Stay with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
Now, every team has been assigned a Heisman contender. Here's the dirty secret about BYU. Its best offensive player barely got to play last season. LJ Martin has serious ability when healthy. Is Aaron Roderick comfortable enough having a guy who will carry the ball 23 times? And I love this pick because that means that BYU will be centered around the run first, and then everything else can come from that, and I think that's where they're going to have a ton of success. The best thing that can happen to Jake Retzlaff's career
100%
is LJ Martin. Not just being healthy, but the run game being healthy, and the run game getting 5.5 per. That'd be amazing.
Your first best friend is a tight end, but another best friend is that running back, because if he's doing his thing, it makes things a lot easier for you. It's a lot easier to find guys open because defenses are keying on the run. So that would be very important for BYU.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE wins concert tickets on a Win Tickets Wednesday. Today, we're giving away a pair of tickets to see Breaking Benjamin and 3 Days Grace at the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on September 27th. They're free. Caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. 801-575-9663. Call now. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We are not all the way through the spring football tour, but we just went through UCF. And as you listen to one media member after another analyze where teams stand in the spring, who do you have a lot of faith in? Who do you have a little faith in? Who are you confused about? And who do you think is absolutely lost and a guaranteed W? Man, I hope my favorite school isn't missing them this year.
Yeah, I don't know that I have anybody as an absolute guaranteed W because I can't get rid of what happened last year in my mind. It's fresh in my mind. It was one of the most remarkable seasons that we've ever seen in terms of predictions. And these are the people that we're talking to. The ones that make the predictions are the guys or the ladies that we're talking to. And so with that in mind, nobody had a clue. And then you just have one critical injury, and it curtails everything. Right now, there was a thing on Athlon Sports I saw and just looking around, and they had coaches anonymous talking about stuff that's going on, and they have Arizona being down. So they just go alphabetical order, basically, as I can see it. And they have Arizona being way down. Obviously, that would be the top if you're going to go alphabetically. And it looks like they're in serious decline. Okay, and then it has for ASU would be next, and it ends up that they're going to be at the top of the league for a while. All right, Sam Levitt goes down. That changes everything. Right? Knock on wood that he doesn't. I don't want anybody to get injured, but that's how fragile all this stuff is. Now, I get last year, I don't have a vote, but as I doped it out, I thought, it was pretty reasonable. It's like when you get down to team 10, 11, 12, all the way down to 16, you're just sort of just picking them. The Devils were picked 16th, but, they probably could have been picked 12th. But that's still not very good. Right? And they go all the way to the top. So the point is, it's really difficult with injuries factoring in and the transfer portal. I mean, you're bringing in an enormous amount of people for Utah. You're bringing in an enormous amount of people to the stick we just had with UCF. You're not bringing in a lot of people for BYU and ASU because they didn't have a lot of holes to fill, right?
Right.
So I can understand that. To me, I could go easily 5 teams, maybe 6, 7 to play in that final game. So I'm picking the final 2.
Well, that's like last year then.
Because that's all that matters.
There were 7 teams at the top of the league separated by 1 game. An injury here, a penalty there, a drop ball here. That's not much. There are 4 teams at 7-2 and 3 at 6-3. So you think we're going to see a lot of what we saw last year.
But I don't know
Parity
who
and
they
chaos.
are. I can't imagine to that level. Who's ever picked 16th this year, I do not believe will win the league.
Well, that's not going to happen again. Nor will the two teams who were picked 1-2 meet in the opener, and then neither team wins again until the last weekend when Utah won.
Well,
that was remarkable.
If you have a major injury and you don't have anybody behind them that's ready to go, there you go.
But two teams, Oklahoma State went 0-9 and Utah went 2-7.
Yeah, the two most senior coaches who've built great programs.
It didn't make any sense at all.
It don't.
Yet, there it is.
Yeah. I would watch out for a team like TCU. I think they may be a little bit of a sleeper.
Coming off of 6-3, and what about Baylor? 6-3 with
I
their
don't think
quarterback
Baylor
back?
is a sleeper.
With their quarterback back, it's too obvious.
I mean, TCU has it back too.
Texas Tech, with all the money they're pouring in that program.
I don't think they're a sleeper at all. Not at all.
But as of the seven, these three are in your seven.
Texas Tech, yeah, for
Iowa
sure.
State's in your seven with their quarterback back, and they tied for it last year at 7-2.
Absolutely.
And on we go.
And then the Cougars and Devils, yeah.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. When we come back, Andy Bailey, NBA writer and analyst for Bleacher Report. The draft less than a month away. What does he expect for trades at the top? We will talk with Andy coming up next. And what does he think the Jazz are going to do? Stay with us. DJ PK, and we are joined now by Andy Bailey, NBA writer and analyst for Bleacher Report. Andy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
So it's less than a month to the NBA draft. Now, we had the draft lottery, and there was lots of disappointment and all of that. But is the draft order going to hold? Are teams going to trade? Are the Jazz going to be involved? Are the Spurs going to move? Do they need another guard who's 6'6" or smaller? Really? Is Harper a great fit at 6'6"? Next to Castle is listed at 6'6", and Fox, who they acquired from Sacramento, who's 6'3". Does that make sense? So the Spurs, they got to make a deal. It's a great small ball lineup, but everybody's trying to get bigger. They're trying to get smaller.
Yeah, I mean, you set it up perfectly. I think the Sixers, they're another one, but the Spurs are primed to make a move, and they've been posturing for basically ever since the lottery that they think all three of those guys can play together. But I'm with you. I think you want to be a little bit bigger than that. I guess theoretically you can play those three together and think that you'd be fine athletically. Because Harper and Castle are pretty long for their position, and for that matter, so is De'Aaron Fox. He's got a decent wingspan too. But I would bet that they're at least canvassing the league right now. I inadvertently mentioned the Sixers because I think they're also a pretty easy candidate to make a move. They're certainly not a team that's going to, they're on the clock every single year with Joel Embiid, assuming his title window is even open at this point. I mean, they've got to strike now, and the number 3 pick doesn't really help them do that unless it's traded for some kind of veteran. So I think both of those are very much up for grabs. Utah seems like a team that could be in the mix for those picks. I think a lot of that would depend on how big their appetite is to move Lauri Markkanen. He would obviously help either one of those teams a lot, but I'm not sure. I think it's a no-brainer, obviously, if you're moving Markkanen for a chance to get flagged, but that's just not on the table. I'm not sure Harper or Bailey moves the needle enough for me to be super confident in trading Markkanen, honestly. But I'm sure all three of those teams are making lots of calls right now.
How about if you move Markkanen for that 2nd or 3rd pick and you get to keep the 5th pick?
Say that again. I'm not sure how they.
So the Jazz trade Markkanen. They get either Philly or San Antonio, and maybe they include a couple other things. But they also keep their current pick, so meaning they have 2 top 5 picks.
That's definitely a lot more interesting. And as you talked through it the second time, I thought, okay, I see where you're coming from. And I do think that's a possibility. If they walk away from the draft with Harper and, say, Trey Johnson, that's a pretty interesting haul. And, I think this has to be factored into the discussion no matter what you're keeping. You have to wonder how old Markkanen is going to be whenever the Jazz are good again.
Yeah.
And there are ways they can speed up that timeline. I think Indiana is a really good example of a team that just sort of stayed in the mix for years and years and years until they finally cashed in on this current iteration. And I think they're kind of proving that maybe you don't need to tank, but that ship has already sailed for Utah. It's kind of my roundabout way of saying if they wanted to make moves to get competitive now and not necessarily be a title contender, I think you could sell that. And I think Lauri Markkanen would be good in that scenario. But given what they've done over the last 2 years, it's probably not all that difficult to justify one more, really rebuild-focused move. And if it resulted in them having 2 top 5 picks in this draft, obviously that'd be a lot harder to pass up than, if you have to give up to 5.
We know the names that have been thrown out there at the top of the draft, and I'm curious if you scream in the night, like, that is the guy. Why is he so far down on the list? Or is there also someone who just makes you shudder, like, that guy is on the, as Jay Drew once said, on the road to Bustville. Why in the world is that guy's name in the mix this high up? That makes no sense to me. Anybody feel strongly about in either direction?
I'll give you a few. I have a couple guys in the first category. The more I watch and read about Trey Johnson, the more I like him. I mentioned him earlier talking about the Jazz. I just think that mold of kind of the smooth shooting guard who can, create a little bit as well is a really interesting player. I don't think it's a great comp, but one name that comes to mind is Devin Booker, and that's a name that I think has haunted Jazz fans for years because they had a chance to draft him once upon a time. And then the other one in that category, and I think this is just my personal preference, I've always liked guys that are big on feel and big on skill, and I think I tend to weigh that a little bit more heavily than athleticism as opposed to some other analysts, and that's Con Knippel. A guy who you just know he can play basketball, as simplistic as that sounds. He can do a little bit of everything. He's got a very repeatable jump shot, which I always like. His mechanics are great on that. I think he's got solid feel as a playmaker for a guy his size. So both of those guys are interesting to me in that range for the Jazz. And the one that I have just been hesitant on this entire way through, really even during the college season, was Ace Bailey. And I understand the appeal with like the length and jump shot combined with that length. But he gives off vibes of, in maybe the worst ways, Michael Porter Jr., who's a player that I actually think is kind of underrated in the NBA. But his weaknesses are the fact that he doesn't really do a lot besides shoot. And I have a feeling that could be the case with Ace Bailey too. A guy who's, you like those 2 traits at the top, the size and the shooting. But if he's not contributing in the other categories, it's hard to see how impactful he'll be. I think the further we get into this positionless or largely positionless era of basketball, the more you want guys who can do a lot of different things. It just makes your team more dynamic, less predictable. And I'm not sure Ace Bailey's going to fit that mold.
If the draft holds as expected, the top 3 or 4, if you are the Jazz management, who would you take at 5?
I think I'd probably take Johnson. I have a mock draft pulled up here right now. They've got Jeremiah Fears going there, which I think is kind of interesting too. But and when you have the number 5 pick and you're in Utah's situation where you've already been rebuilding for a couple of years, you're obviously not going to be drafting for need. They're just going to take the best player available. So that's my caveat to what I'm about to say. But I do kind of like Keontae George still and Isaiah Collier. I'm not sure either one of those guys is going to be a star. But I'm just a little bit more – I'm a little higher on the wing upside than the point guard upside. And so I would probably go with Trey Johnson at number 5 if everything, like you said, if everything kind of goes to form through those top 4 picks.
There is a pick at 21. Is there anybody real value out there that you just can't wait to see someone take a flyer on? I mean, the odds aren't great at 21, but people do hit. Is there anyone you've got any conviction in?
I don't know if I'd use the word conviction.
Intrigue. How about intrigue? Serious intrigue.
Yeah. And I just gave a little spiel about how they might not necessarily need a point guard, but I think Walter Clayton is interesting there. I don't think you have to worry too much about age at this point. I know, everybody's so obsessed with we have to have everybody on the same timeline. But in a way, you could kind of get some veteran leadership from a rookie if you took a guy like Walter Clayton there, and I think he could. I think he'd have a chance to play. I just said I like Collier and George, but I don't think either one of those guys is settled in as the point guard of the future. So he's an interesting one to me around that range, depending on how far he falls. And I think he's a candidate to potentially fall. If Igor Denman, hopefully I'm saying that right, from BYU, obviously a lot of Utah area fans are going to know who he is. I think he'd be an interesting guy if he falls that far. Combination of size and playmaking is always super intriguing to me, and he's got that in spades. So that one's a little bit more draft dependent because I don't think he's going to fall to 21, but I don't think it's out of the question either.
So you hail from the other side of our mountain range and know the Nuggets very well. Obviously, they did not have enough depth to compete at the level that they had been competing. What can they do to get better?
There's such an interesting situation. Whoever they hire to be the general manager is walking into a pretty tough spot because Calvin Booth has really already played every card that Denver had. Their draft assets are almost entirely spent. I think the two contracts that people probably anticipate being available, which is Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., I don't think either one of those guys has a ton of trade value right now, and it has to do with durability a lot with both of them, and just the size of their contracts too. I think is going to be daunting for teams. They are the kind of players that if you trade them to get better, you probably have to attach picks, and Denver has already spent all of its picks. The move that blew my mind at the time, and I just keep coming back to, is I think it was just last summer. They salary dumped Reggie Jackson to the Hornets, and they attached 3 second-round picks to him to get it done. Second-round picks don't have a ton of value, but if you were paying attention at the last trade deadline, there were a lot of useful players who were moved for second-round picks. And so they've just spent so much of their capital. I think it's going to have to be a fringe type of a move, and I think you could probably sell that. Their top five is still really good when they're healthy, as rare as that is. But if they could put together, like Zeke Naji and maybe a little bit more salary, and go get a backup five like Kelly Olynyk, that's an idea that's intrigued me for a while. But the kind of realistic trades you're thinking about for the Nuggets aren't going to blow anybody's socks off. Like they're probably not going to be able to swing a massive move this summer just because they've already spent everything they have.
They need to find a Joe Ingles coming over from Europe. They need to find someone in the G League. They need to find their undrafted Alex Caruso.
And, stuff like that. You just named a bunch of examples, and a guy like Joe Ingles would be perfect for them, a playmaker with size. Those guys are obviously hard to get. And I think Denver's coaching staff, or at least the previous one, didn't have a great track record of developing unknown assets. But it's moves like those that really can make the difference for an entire NBA season, really. They kind of had one a couple years ago. A lot of analysts famously thought the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope move that they made was kind of an effort to duck the luxury tax, but that was a fringe move that turned out to swing a title race. So, it's going to have to be something under the radar. And if it's as far under the radar as, somebody coming from an overseas league or an undrafted free agent, those, if you hit a home run on one of those, you are in great shape.
We were debating earlier, not the best player on the market. Okay, Giannis, right? But who's the best value in a big trade, right? Durant could be moved. Markkanen could be moved. Giannis could be moved. You can go down a list of people. But, to get Giannis, you might have to give up so much you don't have enough left to have the championship team you crave by bringing Giannis on board. So is there a player out there you think really outstrips their value on the trade market and somebody can make a really good deal? And is it Markkanen? Just to lead the witness.
It's so funny.
Just to lead the witness.
I was going to say, it's so funny you ended the question that way because even as you mentioned his name going through the question, I thought maybe it's Markkanen. The trick there is I think Danny Ainge will be very aggressive or stingy in those trade negotiations, and he may try to extract a ton of value to move him. So that throws off that whole value balance we were just talking about potentially. But when he was healthy, those first 2 years in Utah, he was one of the most interesting, unique offensive weapons in the league. So little wasted dribbles and motion with him. It was just all finishing, all threes, all dunks, all aggressive. He would just be an incredible finisher next to any playmaker in the league. It's fitting that he's nicknamed the finisher, obviously. I mean, he's phenomenal at that. So he's one that stands out. An interesting one to me, and it comes with a mountain of risk, is Zion Williamson. And it depends on, again, how much does New Orleans want to extract to give him up? And if you trade for him, obviously you're going to be biting your fingernails the entire time you have him on the team because who knows how much he's going to play, who knows when he's going to get hurt. But when he is healthy on those rare occasions, he's another guy that's just a phenomenal offensive weapon and an incredible finisher like Markkanen as well. Not the shooter, obviously, but an incredible interior finisher. And I think a very underrated playmaker. So he's an interesting one. I don't know if he fits the value part of the question as much, but he's certainly somebody that I think we're going to hear about this summer.
Andy, we appreciate it. It is always good to talk to you, and maybe we'll check in with you again right before the draft as things change and things shift leading up to it. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Appreciate it, fellas. Have a good one.
Andy Bailey, NBA writer and analyst for Bleacher Report, joining us right here on The Zone. When we come back, everything you missed during today's show, that's next. Stay with us.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
5 and Lauri for 3 and Paul George is a basketball move. That's the only way you could explain that away, that would be a basketball
But
trade.
that's why I'm saying I think you'd have to have additional value. If Lauri Markkanen doesn't fit into the window, Paul George certainly doesn't fit into the window. He is on the downside of his career. The value in that deal for the Jazz is you're eating that thing, and you need more than moving up 2 spots in the draft. The idea to swap 5 for 3, it's like, no, absolutely not. You wouldn't do that. For 2 spots to eat Paul George's contract, that's crazy. There's no way, because there's no basketball argument, period. There's not.
If you were dead set on you had to get Ace Bailey, I would do 5 and 21 for 3. But no, I'm not taking back Paul George.
Right.
And 3 for 5 and Lauri. I don't think that's valuable enough for where Paul George is right now.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone, and it is time to get you up to speed on everything you missed in this show. Brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary, 801-899-7600, or visit their website at TrajanWealth.com. Time to talk about everything you missed in this show. The spring football tour. UCF, Matt Murschel joined us. Beat writer for UCF and college football writer for the Orlando Sentinel. Many questions at UCF, a program that seems like there's some strengths. There's so many players in football. In Florida, there's so many football players. They've got their stadium. They've got an enormous school. They can pack the students in there. They
Disney
can have a crowd.
World.
Yes, you can visit and go to Disney World. And we'll get to that in just a second. We've got new news about Disney. And we'll get to that. But sustained success has eluded UCF. How much do you believe in Scott Frost's ability to come back in really a different era? He was there before NIL and before the transfer portal. In theory, the transfer portal could help bounce back kids. Florida kids get recruited all over the country, and sometimes, you want to go home. They ought to be able to find 40 or 50 good players.
I think in today's world it is drastically different. You have to ask, what's the money available?
Mm-hmm.
How much money do they have to be able to field a competitive roster? I mean, it's a requirement. It's not for some folks, it's the most important thing. I mean, Levitt, the kid at ASU, talked about, he didn't name names, but he talked about how he got some bigger money offers, obviously, and he said a few $100,000 wasn't worth it. Whew.
To you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
to somebody else, it might be totally worth it.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. But where he is, maybe Marcus Arroyo, longtime coordinator and coach at Vegas, and he's got a track record. I think he'll be a head coach again here in the next few years. If he had left, it might be another story. But he comes back. The head coach has developed quarterbacks legendary for doing that. So in this situation, a few $100,000 wasn't.
The short-term money isn't worth it. The long-term money could be much bigger.
Right, where he's projection for him, but everyone is different. So how does that play out? They had UCF in the spring portal. They had a lot of guys leave. I think they had like 20 guys, new coaching staff. And so you see all that. I wouldn't think that they would be a big surprise team if they can find a way to get to 6-7 wins. I'm very conservative when it comes to projections for teams that are down. Before you sprint, let's learn to run type of thing.
Crawl, walk, run, fly.
And so in my mind, they're looking for a fair amount of success. And I think, they might have an opportunity to get that either this year or next year, and then see where you're at.
The new news from Disney, BYU's headed there for Thanksgiving. They're going to be playing in the tournament with Dayton, Georgetown, and Miami. The adventure bracket of the
Terry's basketball, obviously.
Yeah, basketball. Terry's Chocolate ESPN Events Invitational at Walt Disney World Resort. I'm running out of gas.
Now, the other thing is yesterday was reported they're playing UConn in Boston.
Oh, man. AJ, he going home. The best homecoming since Jimmer went to upstate. Yeah, this is just unparalleled times for BYU. Nothing, and I mean literally nothing, matches it that entire athletic department has ever been in the position of they are a hot commodity. Everybody wants them to come play in your tournament, and you can just go schedule a game with UConn and UConn thinking, absolutely, man, and we'll go up the road a little bit, up the freeway 95 and play in Boston. Yeah, wow. I mean, my goodness gracious. This is crazy, all the great teams that they're going to play. This is unlike anything. The West Coast Conference might as well have been 100 years ago.
It does feel like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
It's completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter. We don't think about it. We don't talk about it. It happened. It was. And now we're on to the next thing.
There'll never be a player again in BYU history who will tell a group of maybe 10 students to shut the F up.
Won't be able to hear that.
It'll be thousands, he may tell them.
May tell thousands. If the mic is placed right, we might hear it.
But
we won't hear one
10.
voice echo across the gym and bounce off the bleachers that they didn't bother to roll out. Because the staff is like, this is a lot of... Yeah, one more time.
Shut the F up!
Yeah, I can hear the echo.
Yeah. I would love to have a UConn come back out here this way next year after this next 2 seasons and play at Delta Center and have Rob Wright. Sit down. We beat your ass.
Yeah, we beat your ass. Sit down.
Oh, I had it backwards.
Yak was ready. Like,
I knew where it was going.
I see where he's going. I got the roadmap. I know what's up around the corner.
Yeah, we beat your ass. Sit down.
Those profane Lone Peak kids. Sheesh.
How
Potty
quaint
mouths.
is that? How quaint is that when Lone Peak drove the BYU basketball program? Although the Power Center hasn't moved that much. You know, the Tech Giants are just a short jog away.
Oh,
a short Thanksgiving 5K for a run for you.
As Kevin Young said, he drives down I-15 and he passed 10 Tech Giants. He said that back in Jersey in the press conference leading up to the game. What was it, against Alabama in the Sweet 16? Yeah, he's right. He is, yeah. I got to give that man just an awesome amount of credit to be so bold and then to understand everything that's out there and why this is a position I want, because clearly, he could be the Suns head coach right now. Or an NBA head coach would be in the running.
Mm-hmm.
And
no,
he gave that up because he had the foresight, is that the right word, to see what was out there and what could be done at BYU. And we sat side by side in his press conference, and I got to admit, I'm thinking to a degree, yeah, right. You're up there talking. Yeah. And I remember Dave Rose, we're going to plan to go to the Final Four. And they did have that great opportunity, and I believe that they would have accomplished it. But that was a one-shot deal. It looks like Kevin Young this isn't one shot. This is every friggin' year. I'm a blue blood. Just almost like a snap of his fingers, man. Mm-hmm. This is the greatest transformation in the history of Utah sports.
Ooh, great transformations. Ready and go.
All right, where are you going?
Well, Utah football and BYU football.
But
because
that took
once upon
a while. It wasn't overnight. This is overnight.
Oh, so if you want to go fastest transition.
Yes, no.
You said greatest.
But
best.
I'm including the quickness in which it was accomplished. Right. Yeah.
Because for the youth, you can play from it's like Urban. You can say it's a 2-year thing, but Urban
inherited Alex Smith.
Urban said a million times, "I built on Ron McBride's recruits," and Max recruiting took, in college football terms, generations of players. So you could argue it was from when they hired Mac, 90, 91.
Ron McBride did a phenomenal job building that program, but it was handed off.
Right. So it's certainly a 10 to 14-year arc.
And credit goes to him for doing that. He got in the trenches and dug. He practically had shovels in his hands digging, if you want to go that metaphor.
They had to redo the stadium in the middle of that run.
Right.
There was a lot of stuff going on.
I think they're going to put his name up there. Hopefully they get to it while he's still on planet Earth.
That would be good.
But that's what I'd heard. And so we'll see about that. And LaVelle Edwards, obviously incredible, but it took a good while. This guy here, to where we were judging BYU's success on maybe if they won a tournament game, if they got to the tournament and win a game. Now I got Tim Lacombe sitting here last week saying, Elite Eight, that's got to be the goal.
You got to go a step further.
And that's not even outrageous.
You got to go a step further.
You got the number one recruit combined with all these other guys. And returning guys, Saunders.
Well, the fact that Saunders came back,
would have been the coach, he could have blossomed. But he blossomed under Young. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
And Young called his shot. He said early in the season, Richie Saunders is an NBA guy. But I think he said that before they even played a game.
And DeBonce is the headliner, but it's the veteran guys who win deep in the NCAA tournament.
Well, they've got them.
That's what you need. But look at Houston's roster.
They've got those guys are there.
How did Auburn build a team? I mean, you can run across all these teams, and it's get old, stay old, juniors and seniors, 21, 22, 23-year-old guys.
Yeah, and 18, Duke's going to have 4 picks.
Yep.
So get that way, too. It can be done both ways.
If you can't, Duke can do it one way. I don't know how many people can do it that way.
But you're telling me BYU?
You will not be outbid. So in that case, don't get outbid by Duke and go get those 4 guys.
Well, I don't think there's only 4 guys.
Okay, go get
caliber of those players.
4 lottery picks, including a generational talent at number 1.
Well, how do we know DeBonce isn't a generational talent at number 1?
Well, they don't have the other 3 lottery picks. I mean, they didn't bring in that many 18-year-olds. So it'll be a different recipe. And quite frankly, I like the recipe better than the other one. I mean, Duke did it so it can be done, but it feels like the exception to the rule.
Kentucky did it. It is the exception to the rule. I agree 100%. But BYU is positioning themselves to be one of those exceptions. That's what they're talking about. That's the goal. Yeah. That type.
And then there's how it would cash in for the Utah Jazz. Because to your point, at some point, some NBA player is going to have to say, yeah, I'll take that money and play in Utah.
And it's going to be DeBonsa.
So how about somebody who's already been here for a year and tasted it and kind of warmed up
DeBonsa
to it?
never leaves Utah. Let's just call it like it is. This is the place.
You're going to get the draft pick, huh? Are you going to have another feeling, another year? Because you had a feeling it was going to be Cooper Flag this year, and then it wasn't.
So what if it's a year off? Who cares?
You are so good. You are so good.
It doesn't matter.
Yak, what do you think on a scale of 1 to 10? How good a pivot was that?
It's not the actual date.
Do you think a minimum, that's an 8?
It was like a pirouette. It was beautiful.
And I'm interested to see if DeBonsa is better than Flag. I think it's a possibility. Not willing to go there yet. I'm going to Missouri. Let's show me. And we'll watch. We will watch it intently.
Will. Yes. There's zero doubt about that.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. Intently. I mean, why would I want to leave this job now with BYU? I want to see their games, every single game I want to watch. Literally every single game. And there might be a time where it takes priority over the Jazz, which has never happened for me since I had this radio gig. Never, ever. Never. No, don't go. I don't want to hear that.
The Jazz have had some deep rebuilds here. I'm trying to think where they were in each of these years.
Well, but the other team's got to be really good to enough to want. Was there any West Coast Conference game outside of friggin' Gonzaga?
Well,
maybe St. Mary's that I'd be interested. Now there's 25 of these games next year that I want to see.
Didn't Jimmer blow up right as Sloan quit and D. Will got traded?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think so. But to your point, the Jazz are in what looks like a long rebuild. So ultimately, long term, it could be, a very satisfying process. But there's no short term buzz to be had.
See, I think Kevin Young will be able to do this going forward. He'll get the teenage sensation, and then he'll also have other guys that help them, particularly the LDS kid, the local kid, who sometimes are both, but doesn't necessarily have to be. And he'll have those guys moving up the food chain the way Dave Rose developed so many guys. And by the time they were seniors, they were really good, and Keena Young, those types of players, and Hartzog, and even Fredette was highest level.
Are they doing that with Kozlowski right now?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He's
going to go
example.
Those directions. Yeah. That kid, he had the thumb injury, I think, last year.
Right, okay.
But I've seen that kid play a ton, dozens of games, and I'm telling you, man, draw and kick, and he's over there, put it on the board. He's shooting minimum 60% in those shots if his feet are set. Yeah, and then you got Keita. Keita's not going to be everybody's going to be knocking the door to get him in the NBA, but to have him in the middle and this other kid that played down there, what do they call him, Zave? What's his last name? It begins with an S. Staten, yeah, mm-hmm. A shot blocker, and he has time to develop.
And that's what they're expecting.
That's what's cool, is he can develop. The problem with Catchings is he got so much run before he ever got there. Oh, my gosh. His grandfather, his aunt, he's 6'9", and he's projected as a potential first rounder. Well, that was a joke. And if it could have toned it down a little bit, maybe he could have found his way.
That could be the reverse of the BYU quarterbacks, where so many BYU quarterbacks succeeded, and then Ty Detmer won the Heisman, right? Standing on the shoulders of all these quarterbacks who come before him. So there could be a lot of hype for a lot of guys, but now everyone may know to tone it down a little bit. I mean, it may be like Catchings. Who's to say how good Catchings is when he's 25 years old and where is he playing? But maybe, at 18, he wasn't ready to put a college program on his shoulders in the Big 12 and march to glory. But that doesn't mean at 22 or 28 or whatever, you can't be a very good player in the NBA.
He was swallowed in the expectations.
Right. But now maybe we can all dial back our expectations.
Yeah, and if his name was Cannon Anderson or something, but it's Catchings.
Right.
Everybody knows Catchings. It's a basketball legendary family. And his aunt is up there sitting in the stands and they're showing her. And come on. That was so hard to live up to. And he didn't, obviously.
Anything else from the show you want to share with the people?
Yeah. I mean, the Pacers at Halliburton. Halliburton was the 12th pick of the draft. Guys are out there, my friends. They are available. And it's up to Danny Ray and Jay-Z to find them.
It's going to be an 11th and a 12th pick, it looks like, leading their teams into the NBA Finals.
Oh, you're going SGA?
SGA's 11 pick. Halliburton's a 12 pick. Halliburton, just savor this stat line. 32 points, 12 rebounds, 15 assists, 0 turnovers. I think he played 38 minutes, had the ball in his hands a lot, and the Knicks couldn't get him to do 1 turnover. Everybody needs some easy points. You need to turnover. You need to run. Let's go.
I don't think this series is over, though, but obviously they're the heavy favorites. You only have to win 1 out of the next 3.
DJ and PK tonight at 6:30 ESPN, Oklahoma City up 3-1 on Minnesota, Game 5 Western Conference Finals. When we come back, your feedback next. Stay with us.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. It is time for your feedback. Question of the morning, what can the Jazz get if they trade Lauri Markkanen? Salt Lake Jake, hopefully a moving truck to Seattle. Well, you got to be like that, Salt Lake Jake.
Oh, that's stupid. Get out of
Got a local owner, not happening. Worry about something else. Dream about something else. Curtis, who cares? They're not going to make the playoffs regardless of what they do.
Okay. Next year.
We already did a segment earlier this season about how in 3 years everything turns over in the NBA. 3 years ago, the Suns were on top of the world. I guess they're 4 years removed now from the NBA Finals. And Oklahoma City was the worst team in the league. And who's going to the finals now? Oklahoma City if they win tonight.
Yeah.
Sam, the only way I'd even consider trading Lauri is if we got several first-round picks and a younger player who's already a fringe star with a high likelihood of becoming a star in the next couple of years.
Oh, my gosh.
He wants a Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert type haul.
That sounds more than that.
Several first-round picks and a young player who's already a fringe star.
They already have several first-round picks.
They do. How many first-round picks can you have in your roster at one time?
How many do you want? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not hung up on the picks. I'm hung up on this pick this year.
Where they would need picks is out because now as the calendar moves along, now you can start trading these 2030, 2031 picks. I don't know if you can trade a 2032 yet or if you're about to be able to. Get something out there. Don't add another pick in 27 or 29. They did move some with that deal they did with Phoenix. I like that. I like spreading them out. They gave up late picks to Phoenix. Those are late first-round picks.
They're going to have to give up. They're going to have to be the giver more than the receiver.
If they're going to bring in veterans. But if they're trading...
If they get the second or third pick and keep the fifth.
Then you start moving picks for players? Or you keep trying to replenish young players behind those?
Yeah.
That's what I think they're going to do. I think they're... They could cross me up, but right now it looks like they are playing the long game all the way.
I don't think that teams are going to be dying to get Markkanen. You're going to have to sweeten the deal to make them an offer that they can't refuse. My point is that we would look at the
where
deal,
you're going. Yeah.
And they'd have to give up more than they actually get.
So for people just listening now, there's some assumptions built into this conversation you're not aware of, and we've been talking all morning about can you move Markkanen and get the second or third pick. If you're moving Markkanen for the second pick in the draft, you don't get 3 or 4 more picks like they did with Gobert.
Right.
You know, the assumption that Minnesota was making is we're going to be good and we're giving you late first-round picks, so we'll give you multiple late picks. And the Jazz are hoping they catch a break at the far end of this. 27, 29.
Yeah. I mean, they've
catch a break. Because Minnesota was going to be good for a while.
You anticipated it, and
that's
same with Cleveland.
Yeah. But if you're trading up front for a number 2 pick, yeah, I'd be surprised. I mean, I know Trader Danny likes to wring out the last bit of value out of every move, but that's a pretty big ask.
Right. But it might be worth it.
Right. Doug says, what do they get if they trade Markkanen? An extra 5 years on the rebuild. Doug, that goes to what I just said. You and I are seeing it the same way. They're playing the long game.
The rebuild's going to be there
here.
either way, with or without him.
Too old. Doesn't fit the timeline.
Yeah,
which is why everyone's anticipating a move.
And with the cast that is going to be, say he stays here, the cast that he has available to him to play with isn't going to be good enough, no matter how good he is.
Doesn't fit.
So the rebuild is there.
Yeah, the pieces
we can't run from it. It's there.
Clearly. The chance to beat it, maybe they get one more next year, but the chance to beat it was right now, was to get Flag and to trade for a veteran who could play right now. And they didn't get Flag.
The rig system didn't allow it.
Look at you. You want to end on that note?
Clearly.
Is that it?
Come on.
Shaden says the only deal I've seen so far that is worth it is the Jazz and the Rockets. Jazz ship Markkanen to Houston. In return, they get Jalen Green, Jabari Smith Jr., and a 2026 first-round draft pick.
What's in it for Houston, though? I don't know.
An older guy who can help them win right now.
Yeah, but why would you give up all that?
I think you probably won't. It won't happen. Yeah. But that's what's most of the speculation won't happen. The one will, and sometimes it surprises you. And we just had that with the Mavericks and Lakers.
Right, I know, and I'm trying to be as realistic as possible of what I can conceive happening.
If it's the Sixers, we could get the number 3 without giving up the 5. We'd have to throw in Collins, JC, and maybe a future pick swap. Probably have to take some bad money back.
Well, Paul George.
There it is. DMP certified right there. He's ready. Make the Philly deal. Now, who do they think is going third, and do they have that kind of conviction in somebody? Who is Ainge looking at thinking, that's my guy. I believe in that guy.
I don't know about that because I've only heard stuff about the 5th pick, not the 3rd.
Right.
So I'm not sure.
But if he really believes in 5 and he's worried Charlotte might take him at 4, it's time to get to 3 and get your guy if you have that kind of conviction in him.
Okay, yeah. So
now,
okay,
if you can get a feel,
if
you can get a feel for what Charlotte is thinking, and if they're thinking something different than you, and you got nothing to worry about. Just sit there and get your guy at 5.
I don't know. You can get to that position of being that comfortable right now. Maybe in a couple of weeks.
Well, also he says if we could get the 3 without giving up the 5.
Yeah.
So now it's like, hey, I believe in multiple players, and I want them both.
Yeah. So do I.
We're all done. Jake and Ben will continue the conversation next, right here on The Zone.